The Empire of Rock is a country in which the four great duchies not only possess special powers, but also have greater authority than His Majesty the Emperor himself. Supernatural abilities are passed on to one descendant in each generation. Serdia's is metamorphosis, Gerver's is insight, Rodvik's is breath, and Gebetsman's is ice power. It is precisely these abilities that increase the rank of duke, but because of the cursed energy called that accumulated as it was used, everything is bad. The representatives of the duchy were doomed to a short, painful life. The only mage capable of healing was Rutium, who possessed high healing abilities. This girl was the main character, and it was because of her abilities that she died. She runs down the street, hearing screams behind her, asking her to stop. The little girl almost stumbles, but hurries forward. Realizing that this can't be the end, she wasn't properly fed, but she got her strength from somewhere. Even though it was just a dream, the blonde doesn't want to live like this. This should never have happened if God does exist. The girl hopes that He will save her from the terrible and make sure that she is happy in the end. After her mother's death, her uncle sold the heroine into slavery, and the next 10 years became literally hell. She stands silently while the seller shouts about selling her cheap. Realizing that the girl has lowered her head, the brunette hits her in the face, ordering her to raise her face and smile welcomingly so that she can be sold faster. A low male voice is heard. He does not understand why the child is being so cruelly bullied, holding out his hand. The Duke asks the blonde to come with him. He will help her. That day, the little girl thought she was finally saved. She blindly believed that if she gave him her hand, the torment would end. But this was only the very beginning. The girl was named Agnes because she had no name. As he sat her down on the bed, the man asked her to close her eyes and concentrate, imagining the healing of the body. A lot of strange thoughts flash through her head. She has never done anything like this, so she doesn't understand what's what. But then inside her heart feels like it's being squeezed by pliers. Turning away, the heroine screams that nothing will work out for her, that her insides won't be able to withstand it if she waits a little longer. But the young man doesn't listen, saying that everything is fine with her. From the very beginning, the hero began to feel how this dark energy, which prevented him from breathing, was gradually leaving his body. Agnes was given the order to continue until the very end. The girl was born only for him, no matter how much she screamed. Gerver did not want to stop. There was simply no benefit in it. He kept asking for his wounds to be healed. Almost immediately, it became clear that the heroine was taken only to obtain her powers. Of course, she tried to escape, but each time it was a big mistake because she was caught. In the end, the Duke became even more cruel, although it seemed that it could be much worse. 10 years passed in torment, which dragged on terribly long, and his body became weaker and weaker. The girl hopes that God exists, and having heard her prayers, will help her survive all the bad things, taking her closer to Him and providing her with the happiness she deserves. The suffering should have ended, opening her eyes. The little girl sees the light shining from the window. Perhaps this is the afterlife, and it seems that everything is not so bad, because at least she has stopped suffering. Her hands reach forward, and her gaze freezes as soon as it focuses on her small fingers. The blonde jumps up on the bed, not understanding why she suddenly decreased in size. The door swings open, and a woman appears, clearly outraged by the fact that the child is still lying peacefully on the bed. No one cares about the death of her mother. Breakfast won't make itself, so Agnes, who usually has all the housework, will make it for her. She still can't come to her senses, not understanding what it's all about. As soon as a question that seems to be true arises, the woman becomes even more angry, and the aunt is made to understand that no one remembers the day before today, as if it had evaporated from consciousness. There is a realization in the blonde's eyes. Her mother died when she was only 7 years old, and now when they talk to her about yesterday, it feels like it's a real dream. It seems that this is reality after all, because the pain in the body before death was quite real. It was reborn before meeting with Gewer, who tormented her. Jumping out of bed, the blonde hurries to the door. She understands that it is time to run away before things get even worse. In any case, she will be sold. She cannot stay in this place. This time, the heroine does not want to die in agony, but if the Duke discovers her, this is exactly the fate that awaits her. Running around the corner, the beauty runs into someone because she did not see at all where she was running. The girl looks up and freezes, but this time from shock standing in front of her is one of those she knew from her past life, and there is no time for jokes. An assistant comes up from behind and picks up the body in his arms. He needs to search her to see if his lordship has been robbed. He has all his things with him, he can see it anyway. The uncle who had finally caught up with the runaway runs up and asks her to give the child back to him because he was going to sell her tomorrow morning. But now that won't happen. The Duke doesn't want to listen to the old man, and squatting down, asks the blonde how old she is. The knight behind asks her not to be shy. Nothing will happen to her. It turned out that the girl was only 7 years old, but even so, something was wrong. The child was too thin, the skin was clinging to the bones, and she looked as if she was no older than 4 to 5 years old. Theon flashes through her mind for just a second. She is only 2 years older than her son, and apparently that man won't calm down so easily and continues to scream. Extending his hand, the young man suggests that he take her with them. Frankly, she doesn't have much of a choice. If she doesn't go with him, her uncle will sell her into slavery at the market. The future should never be repeated, so the heroine timidly asks if she will be hurt, if she asks to be treated better. Perhaps that is how it will be. The hero must have been abusing the child, making her feel bad. 2 of them were looking at him with such looks as if they were ready to incinerate him right now. The young man picks up the baby in his arms and calmly says that he will never hurt her this time. It is his oath which is worth a lot, and he is telling the truth. The blonde also looks with slightly frightened eyes, which will fill with tears at any second. If this is the case, she agrees to go with them. It's all decided. Jed will take care of the rest, in the form of that man who remains nearby. He just starts screaming and complaining about what's happening. Placing a heavy hand on his shoulder, the brunette suggests discussing all of this with him, because in this way, perhaps they will still reach at least some understanding. The duo had already set off for the carriage. The Duke was looking at the child. She was a little funny, and in his eyes, she looked more like a big, dusty rabbit. Finally deciding to speak, the blonde finds out whether it is really the Duke in front of her. She lists only 4 families that are the most important in the empire. The girl lies about how she realized that the man is from the Rodvik family, saying that he is simply wearing expensive clothes, when in reality, only the most important ones have abilities. Judging by the energy around the young man, he was one of the greats. The hero noticed that despite her age, the child was very smart, although it was still unclear why she ran away. As it turned out, the young man's name was Blake, and after hearing this, the young lady froze with her mouth open. Only now did it become perfectly clear to her where exactly she had ended up. Rodvik is the most famous family of assassins in the Empire. They have the ability to control breath. There are rumors that the Duke is a cold-blooded killer. He and Gerver must be birds of a feather. The blonde quickly realized that she needed to do everything to keep him from finding out about her abilities. Her health wasn't good yet, but she needed to get back on her feet as soon as possible. She is in a very difficult situation. The morning was difficult, both physically and mentally. Her eyes are closing, and her head calmly falls onto the side wall. Blake continues to look at his interlocutor's face, thinking about how smart she is. Perhaps she will even be able to bring Theon to his senses, who has been completely lost in thought lately. I remember that day, when the girl as usual was sitting in the cage. She opened her eyes to see 2 men behind the bars. They were discussing what they could take from her, but it seemed that Gerver did not leave them anything. The Duke lost everything he could, and that was a downside, because he had to hurry and strip everything to the last thread, and that was the moment that couldn't be missed. The girl is unusual, and the men decided that they could make a fortune by selling her to someone else from a wealthier family. The girl starts coughing. She can't hold it in, and unfortunately, blood comes out. The guys immediately jump back. They are not sure whether the heroine has caught some kind of disease, because such symptoms are appearing. She may also be contagious. The blonde wishes that they would quickly start to be afraid and finally run away as far as possible, without interfering with her retreat. Her heart is simply breaking into pieces. The most terrible thing. That dream still continues that day. The lady was needed despite her suffering. Tears involuntarily flow down her cheeks. Rodvik does not understand what she had to go through. The little girl woke up and saw a beauty named Anna in front of her face. She immediately answered the question of where she was, or rather, in the estate of His Grace the Duke. The eyes moved to the sofa. the heroine accidentally stained it. She immediately jumps up and apologizes for the cause of the damage. The words slightly confuse the maid. Anna had heard that a child was almost sold into slavery in that square. But hearing something like that makes her heart clench. It's not clear what she had to endure. To at least lift her spirits a little and show that she is safe here, the lady puts her hand on her head, asking if the beauty will eat. She is probably hungry. The door closed. The child was asked to wait until they returned with a tray. Bad thoughts were running through her head. Not only had the girl fallen asleep in the carriage, but she had also stained the sofa. If the heroine is kicked out, Gerver will come for her. The Duke's family is not on the best terms with Rodvik, so for now you can hide in their mansion. The blonde understands perfectly well that she doesn't have many options of what she can do. She should stay in this place until she grows up, so that she can stand up for herself by the age of 14. She already needs to find a job. Someone entered the room silently. A guy with dark hair chuckled. It seemed that his father had brought some mongrel from the streets into the house again. The boy attracts attention almost immediately because it is impossible not to notice his differences. A lot of ominous energy has accumulated around his body. If the child is the heir, which is clear, it must be that same Theon. He is probably in a lot of pain, because magic is not weak, it makes you suffer. Lowering her head, the little girl turns away. It was decided to ignore it, because if they found out about rhodium's power, then all the terrible things would happen again. While they were talking, Anna walked in, already carrying a tray of fresh food. She asked the boy if he was planning to use his abilities. A look full of anger passes to the lady. She apparently decided to teach him life lessons. But she had never been his nanny, so it would be better not to interfere. Deciding that all this is not worth his magnificent attention, the young man quickly leaves. He needs to wash before eating, and the two will do that. The procedure took quite a long time, definitely more than an hour due to the condition and the amount of dirt. But then the girl was transformed into a real cutie. The brunette climbs in for a hug. It's surprising that she had to hide her beauty for so long, which was different. Her hair is wonderful, as is her skin. It's hard to accept a compliment. Before, the heroine was only called dirty and unpleasant, never considering that she had a soul. While Anna was unable to tear herself away, a male servant arrived and decided to check how things were going, with the child brought to the mansion by his master. The young man pretends to look around, wondering where the woman has gone. The blonde has turned from a dusty bunny into a real lady, and that is precisely why she was not recognized. The butler of the Rodvik estate attracts everyone's attention. Clearing his throat slightly into his hand, he wants to make some important announcement. His Excellency asked him to convey something. The gentleman was interested in whether the baby had a name. If not, he simply had to come up with something new that would suit the child. The girl doesn't understand how she can answer anything. Her mother and uncle simply called her "Hey you" or "Parasite," and only at the Gerver estate did they call her Agnes. That was something new. The child does not want anything from the past life to be in this one, paving the way back. Therefore, he says that there is no name. All information will be passed on to the Duke. Most of the people in the estate bear the names Rodvik gave them, since it was he, as the owner, who suggested something like this. A new life. A new name. His Excellency gave such a gift to those who wished to forget their past, plunging into the future. If the blonde agreed they would be happy together. The girl turned out to be a real beauty, the servant said. When he arrived at the office, it would be necessary to choose a suitable name for her that would reflect her essence. The brunette also found out more about that man. Her uncle wasn't just abusing his niece, and it couldn't be left like that because the baby's future depended on it. The Duke immediately asks what he means, and the interlocutor does not know how to explain. This cannot even be called normal upbringing of children at that age. The mother gave birth to a child on the street. She had nowhere to go, so she went straight to her brother, and that's how the two of them began living with Tamber. The man was clearly unable to care for his own child, so the man took on all the responsibilities, believing that he would cope as best he could. The brunette fed the girl rather meagerly and earned money by giving the blonde to beggars, since beggars with children evoked much more sympathy than those without. Time passed. The little girl grew up, and when she became older, she was forced to do housework, the ones that she could do without problems. The neighbors said that they haven't kept a rooster for several years because they wake up every morning, because of the screams from the beatings. They almost never miss a day. Anna said that the girl constantly stood there, afraid of getting the sofa even dirtier. This is due to her difficult past. She really had a very hard time. The young man nods. He doesn't know what else to say, then quickly writes something down on paper. It's not worth opening the envelope yet, only the next morning. It's not hard to guess that there's a name written inside that will belong to her if she can see it. If she doesn't, the knight will come up with a new one for her. The brunette chuckled. He hadn't thought this was a good idea from the start. She hadn't even received a basic education in her entire childhood, so she probably wouldn't read anything. That's right. The Duke must agree, but he is sure that the child is special, because this was confirmed when they were still riding back to the estate in a carriage together. The little girl asked what had happened to her uncle, and when she was told that he would never bother her again, she immediately assumed that he had been killed. That was the first thing that came to mind. The girl at such a young age knew what death was, because it was when everything you knew, including yourself, came to an end. And Rodvik didn't even consider such an answer. The heroine's thoughts are not at all like those of an ordinary child. Her level of knowledge is high, much higher than that of an uneducated kid. The hero orders to do as he is told. Once the lady has received the name, the knight will go to the uncle, who is very fond of money, since he will never be able to work again. It must be ensured that generous compensation is paid. Now the girl has become part of the Duke's family. She will also be close by and will be safe, never feeling left out, or like she is going the wrong way. For now, the baby was placed in a room with Anna. She thought it would be scary in a family of murderers, but here she received more sympathy than she expected. It's hard to believe that this place even provided the slave with a proper bed. She hadn't slept so well without any problems with comfort in a very long time. The gaze moves to the window because a strange shadow falls on the door. Of course, Theon is there, looking intently at the baby. The girl doesn't quite understand. When the man penetrated inside, she wasn't sleeping at all, but didn't notice a single movement. He calls her doggy, addressing her. Timidly asking the question, the heroine receives a not very good answer. She was named that way only because her hair is somewhat reminiscent of dog hair. Her eyes carefully examine her hair. There is nothing similar in her imagination. It seems the girl is not at all afraid of her opponent. She does not care at all. A brunette from the Rodvik family. He can beat up a slave, and no one will even notice with these words. He takes out a knife which he puts closer to his face, showing his intentions. The beauty's face doesn't change at all. She knows that the guy is definitely lying if the owner of the power wants to kill someone. A red aura appears around him, and it doesn't change. Nothing has changed around the young man. There is still the same black aura that calmly sways. He probably decided to threaten to make the child afraid. Her eyes look sad, while her voice pretends to tremble. The girl asks not to do anything bad. She does not want to be hurt. Anger rolls forward. It is hard to believe that the little girl is not afraid. In any case, it's best not to overthink anything. The hero decides that everything will resolve itself calmly, without any unnecessary problems. The girl will disappear just like everyone else his father brought. The brunette orders the little girl to disappear by tomorrow morning. She asks why he needs this, because she sincerely does not understand, but it's all because he hates people. In her past life, the blonde knew almost nothing about other families, so she can't even imagine what kind of person he is. She has no options for what to say. All this time, the beauty was eating, and Anna was sitting next to her, who could no longer restrain herself saying what a cutie the interlocutor was. If she was still hungry, then of course she would get something tasty. The servant decides that it is time to stop being childish. He brought a new name, which is written on a piece of paper. The child has been waiting to see it. Anna is outraged. To find out the new name, you have to read it. It seems like a joke, but her friend asks her not to worry. He came up with a nice name of his own just in case. The butler also doesn't understand what the gentleman was thinking when he set such conditions. It seems completely unacceptable. The girl didn't even have the education to be able to read. The child thinks there is some kind of mistake, since it says, Tuarish Rodvik, and the brunette immediately congratulates the lady on receiving her new name. The leader enters the room. He realized that there was a noise inside, most likely because of the envelope, in which she wrote down all the most important things he still had to find out more about what happened there. The girl managed to read the name, which impressed everyone gathered. Now she looks much neater after taking a bath and tidying herself up with Anna's help. The maid did a good job and deserves praise. The brunette still doesn't understand whether the child will really pass on the name of the great family. Perhaps something is not going as it should. The girl wants to know something. She is not sure what she should ask, but she is interested in why her last name is now Rodvik. She is not from the Duke's family. It seems that the heroine does not like it. But this is not so. Blake understands that for a commoner, the opportunity to become an aristocrat is a great rarity. On top of all this, the little girl becomes a representative of one of the most famous families, which is different from others. Perhaps they just want to limit her to family responsibilities, but it's more complicated. In the end, one could say that family is a great reason for submission. Many might say that since you are in a family, you are obliged to help in any way you can. There are still a lot of terrible memories inside. No matter how the uncle treated the baby, none of the neighbors cared. They passed by without turning around. Duke Gervor initially told her that she should treat him like family, that everything would be fine, and that they would always be together. But he kept putting pressure on her. Tuarish remembers being taken hostage, locked inside herself. Tuarish turned pale because she imagined Blake doing the same to her. The baby steps back, trying to say something, but it's all too complicated. She doesn't understand what to do next. She hiccups and can't stop. There was no way to retreat. The Duke tried to calm the child and carefully placed his hand on the top of his head, saying something and gathering strength around himself. The servants standing nearby froze because only now they realized that the master had used his powers as if it cost him nothing specifically for the sake of his daughter. The man knows that using force shortens his life, but it seems that in the moment, he does not care. Perhaps he has discovered strength. In his past life, Gervor found out everything and then changed a lot. He said that only he had such insight, which is why he was able to find out all the details. Since Duke Rodvik passed on the family name, perhaps he learned of the abilities and wants to imprison them in his estate to gain advantages. It's too early to say what happens if the maiden leaves the estate. Gervor kidnaps her. And then it's definitely the end. The lady calmly says that she quite likes the name. If everything is so, the heroine will be happy. Blake carefully takes his daughter in his arms. The girl can now call the man her father. The servant still didn't understand in what sense the Duke decided to adopt the beauty. Nothing terrible would happen, but no one is immune from all sorts of rumors. The family has no problems with heirs. Theon exists, so if they suddenly adopt a commoner, others will start keeping an eye on her. The brunette pretends not to understand what is being discussed and what the consequences will be. It is better to take care of his son. Only his family will think about him, not other people. If you remember, the young man was the one who scared away all those children who appeared in this house. This time, he will have a little sister. It's completely different. There remains hope that the guy will not kill anyone. The man has become very withdrawn lately. He cannot continue to act like this if he is going to inherit the duchy. Tuarish will definitely have a good influence on the boy. The hero is going to adopt a girl. Such a decision cannot be made spontaneously, and such a reason cannot be the most important one. Previously, the gentleman was completely different. He didn't care. No one could change his mind. Now it seems that he is controlled by some strange force. Immediately after the conversation, a servant quickly runs into the room. He wants to say that the lady and young Theon have disappeared. They were not found in the room where they usually are. The girl is being led somewhere she doesn't understand where they will soon be. It seems the boy got angry when he heard that Tuarish is now his little sister. The little girl gently pulls the guy by the sleeve and asks if they can go back. Her leg began to hurt because the journey was too long, which dragged on a bit. Throwing his hands away, the young man orders them to stop clinging to him. In fact, he doesn't care about anything, so there's no point in thinking they won't come back. The young master's horse was found near the monster forest. Blake decides to go there to quickly pick up the two. There is no need to wait any longer. The servant does not understand how the master is going to figure out the area. It is already evening, and at this time, entry into the forest is strictly prohibited. Blake knows everything, so he thinks that they just need to hurry. Theon has enough strength to protect himself, but for the girl, it could be more dangerous. I'll have to use force. It's not the best idea anyway, considering how it affects a person. The man refuses to back down. He brought this child, so he must bear responsibility. The girl hates pain. She also believes that horror happens in everyone's life. She tried to escape several times, but she was caught and hurt every time. One day a girl almost died, but she still managed to survive, the man exclaims. He didn't think it was possible to move on after some terrible injuries. The girl was helped by prayers. This is the only thing she hoped for so much. She asked God to relieve her of pain, and it worked. I remember very well that people from other families were looking for Rudioma. Perhaps Theon was among them too, but now it's hardly possible to say for sure. It's unrealistic. The brunette exhales calmly, but believes that this is no longer true. Everything does not seem true, and the girl did not fulfill the request, so she should be ashamed. The young man turns away. He will not answer the question so that the lady understands something. The blonde does not understand how a 9-year-old child already has such an expression on her face. It is different. The maiden wants to ask for something else. This is the second time the hero once listened to the beauty, and this time everything went quite well. Her hand reaches for the guy's hair. He simply asks her to leave him alone, but the little girl smiles. She couldn't help but notice that the atmosphere in the air has become much better. The brother calmly replies that he brought his sister into the forest to feed her to the creatures that live there. There was silence, and a second later, the girl grabbed his hair, screaming and asking why. The hands move back, and the heroine already wants to apologize, but she understands that there is no point in this. It was the man who tried to feed her to the monsters, so everything is fine. Now the body is shaking a little with horror. It looks like they brought her here and tried to kill her, because she was given the surname Rodvik, which was not hers. The guy lowers his head. He didn't actually intend to give the maiden's body to the beasts. He just wanted to scare her a little. It's too late, the heroine starts crying. She doesn't understand what she did. The little girl wanted a quiet life. She wanted everything to end well. But no, even in this life, everything goes downhill, continuing to cry. She says that she didn't know that she would become part of the family. Even if the brother hadn't intended to kick the blonde out, she would have left in a couple of years. The guy is trying to calm her down. He's sorry for everything he said. Behind them, they hear some rustling sounds that make them feel uneasy. They were not mistaken because behind them, a tree is moving. Only now, the duo realized that evening had come. It was too late, the forest would soon close. The animals gradually begin to emerge. The snake and the wolf were the first to emerge from the depths. The man asks to control himself, and on the count of 3, run as far as possible. The two of them rush forward, trying to escape as quickly as possible, but there are too many obstacles in their way, forcing them to stop and scream. The hand reaches forward. The brunette wanted to use his powers, but realized too late that they seemed to have dried up. He was no longer okay. The end awaited them. The young man answers the question calmly. If the monsters which have not yet shown themselves come again, it would be better to leave him alone and run away. The baby could hold out until morning, and then crawl out. Nothing would happen if he opened his eyes, and she would still be there, definitely having a hand in the murder. Something strange is starting to happen. My nerves are running low, but it's not clear what to do. There's too much energy around my body, because the boy used a lot of his power. It's clear that the girl can't abandon her friend. They must hold out together until the morning. There's only one thing she can do calmly to make it to the end. The beauty will be able to use her rudium ability to heal the hero, but a choice has to be made. If the blonde does this, everyone will find out about her powers, and the horror will happen again. The boy lies on his sister's lap and tries to breathe. Initially, the girl was supposed to die in the estate of Duke Gerver, but the story has long since changed. The new family still seems like just a dream that has come. If she is locked in the basement again, after changing her mind, it will not be so simple. The girl is too unaccustomed to having a father and brother, as well as new acquaintances in the form of servants. Family is quite enough for her, but fear remains in her mind, not allowing her to breathe. The little girl had just decided what she was going to do. She would save her brother at any cost. It hadn't been long, but she would be forever grateful. Rudiom stretches his hand with force, and then he hears someone's quiet voice. The stranger does not believe that such an ability is in front of him. He asks to be brought to this new world and make a contract. Everything that was happening was too sudden. It was impossible to believe that anything would change, but a beautiful lake suddenly appeared right before my eyes. The silly girl doesn't seem to hear. She also has to sign a contract. The stranger laughs because the girl doesn't understand what it means. The contract of the star Rudium exists. The voice asks them to speed up at least a little, because if a big star arrives, they will have big problems. She hates contracts, and seeing the power, she will get angry. The lake suddenly begins to sway. It seems the leader has arrived, and therefore the two who had spoken before disappeared in an instant, leaving the beauty alone with this monster. It is not surprising that there was a strange premonition. It did not leave the body. It seems that this is not the first time this has happened to the child, and she knows what is happening. A smile appears out of nowhere, but it does not bode well. They say the big star hates Rudium. Theon needs to be cured before anything happens. Immediately, the body is enveloped in indescribable pain, which causes harm due to the power of The girl must finish. She simply has no choice. The brunette cut down the monster with one blow and immediately began to smile. The gentleman pretended not to notice because he had already killed a whole bunch of attackers. The head rises to the sky. It became clear that the full moon has risen, which means there will only be more monsters, and it will be more difficult to hide from them. The man understands that this will most likely not happen, but no one can deny that Theon can abandon the child because he was against the girl. Blake brushes it off. His son may not like people, but he's not a tough boy, and knows full well that the forest becomes much more dangerous during the full moon. The young man also thinks so, but he can't get the unnecessary thoughts out of his head. Anna heard the young gentleman calling his sister names, so it became clear that he still resists. Rodwick's strength is that he can control his breathing, so the guy is very sensitive, which is understandable, so it's no wonder he is the most capable in the family. The baby was so strong that after birth, the lady's body became much weaker. She lost some of her energy and therefore fell ill and died. There is no need to worry, because the young man did not kill anyone. Tuarish will not be left alone under any circumstances. Of course, the brunette understands, but he still has a bad feeling. The duo came out into a clearing where they almost immediately discovered the young gentleman and lady lying unconscious, and the harsh growl of an animal could be heard in the bushes behind them. The man steps into the fight to prevent something terrible from happening, while the servant is about to protect the children. He runs up to them and tries to wake them up by lightly clapping his hands. Luckily, the boy is still breathing, and it seems that Rodvik Jr. is also okay, but they are so exhausted that it is unlikely that they will be able to get to their feet and run away. It's good that everything is going as it should for now, but most likely immediately after the duo wakes up, a lot of questions will arise. They are already swirling around in their heads. The girl slowly opens her eyes, which are immediately hit by a bright light, which does not help in any way. She does not understand where she is because she is lying on a beautiful bed in the room. Anna runs inside, glad that the baby has woken up. She brings soup almost immediately. The maid heard that everything could have ended terribly if the master had been late. When the chief and Jed returned, they reported that a bird of prey had been watching the children from the bushes. But fortunately, it had been killed without leaving a single chance. It is obvious that the baby was too scared, and because of this, she slept for too long. And while eating, she realizes that she probably slept all day. The girl lowered her voice and asked about the young master. Anna coughed, but then smiled, saying that Theon was currently being looked after and that they still had to talk to him. Jed knocks on the door of the boy's room in Rodwick's private mansion. He has brought food because his strength still needs to be gradually restored, even if it will be quite difficult. The guy sits wrapped in a blanket. He doesn't care that his name is being called. It's not surprising that he's still offended, because for him, something like this seems completely normal. Jed knows what happened, just like everyone else living on the estate. The baby is the answer of a child without magical abilities in a forest full of monsters, especially on the evening before the full moon. The brunette should be ashamed of what he did. He says that he is no longer offended, but still turns away when he sits down at the table with food placed in front of him. In general, he is really not angry, but he wants to ask about the girl he heard, that she still hasn't woken up, and this is not a good sign that can be used. The hero hasn't visited her since the morning. Anna cried until the morning, as if at a funeral. Although it is not at all clear what is wrong, because the doctor said that the child is not in any danger at all. Jed giggles, wondering why the gentleman is worried. The brunette is chased away almost immediately. In any case, everything ended on such a not entirely positive note. Making a sad face, the young man says that he will probably leave because there is too much brokenness inside his soul. As soon as the door closed, the boy slammed his fist on the table, trying to convince himself that the girl doesn't bother him at all. He needs to ask her something. That's the only thing that matters now. A strange aftertaste remained. The brunette couldn't explain what had happened in the forest, because there was too much that was unclear. The pain that pierced his body and heart disappeared when he opened his eyes. It seemed like the logical outcome would have been something else. After the battle with the monsters, it should have only gotten worse. But no, that didn't happen. He doesn't know what happened while he was unconscious. The girl trusted Theon, but he doesn't know how he should behave. Her father has already given her a lecture, saying that the child considers the boy her brother and trusts him. The young man was asked to at least try to accept her, even if it would be relatively difficult. He remembers how he wanted to kill her. This feeling remained inside when they went into the forest. The little girl not only didn't hide, but also dared to take the guy's hand at a moment when they were alone. It seems she is not afraid at all. It may even be a little frightening, and it is not clear how to fix the situation. The brunette doesn't eat. He's still wondering why he failed to scare the beauty. Now she'll become his sister. And this time, it can't be avoided, because reality is close. Someone's hand is visible behind the glass. It might be a spy, and it would be better to call security. But for the first time, Theon wants to figure it out on his own. His mood has lifted. It's unclear who sent the surveillance, but they won't touch the child. He himself won't allow anything to be done to her, because he realized that she has become family, which means Rodvik will help. The guy suddenly opens the door and starts screaming, but after a second, he falls silent, because there is a child lying on the ground, smiling slightly, and he menacingly asks what she is doing near his room. Lifting the girl onto his back, the young man asks her to calm down. She is too frail, and even the argument that she walked to the estate on her own no longer works. If she eats when she eats, Anna will be able to gain more weight. The girl doesn't quite understand whether they're worried about her or trying to insult her, and tries to ask her to put it down. The boy points to the picture. You can't forget to study so as not to be illiterate. Rushing forward, the heroine convinces him that she can read, but it seems to him that she is lying, because at such an age it is almost impossible. She screams because she has no strength left to argue. In fact, the heroine has already graduated from high school, but that was in a past life, so it may not count. Now she will prove to everyone who is really who. The book ends up on the bed with the first page open, and the child begins to read something about a lying dog, which she seems to resemble quite a bit. The brunette points his finger at the pages every time, saying that they are very similar. But it is unclear what and how the blonde begs herself to be patient, because there is no need to argue with a 9-year-old. The door opens, and his father's voice comes out of the blue. Blake asks what his son is doing in the girls' room, assuming he's simply lost. The boy suddenly disappeared, so the man decided to check if he was bothering Twarish. It turned out that they were reading a book. He recalled a conversation with his wife. The husband said that one child was enough. She was weak, and there was no point in talking about a second baby. The brunette apologized for doing something wrong. She wanted to give the boy a family, because she understood that they both didn't have much time left, and it was worth taking care of this with great diligence. The woman who wanted a second child died before his birth, unable to bear him, and it is hard to believe that Theon's home will be Twarish, a commoner from the street. The man clears his throat to make his voice sound as menacing as possible. The child is still being punished, which means it would be best to go back into the room and stop resisting. That day, the boy used too much of his magic. If children are surrounded by a dark aura, the risk of death increases greatly, and this is terrible considering the forest and the full moon. The boy is the Duke's only heir, who almost died at the hands of a stranger. She will have nothing to say, even if she is thrown out into the street. Blake is not going to drive her away, instead. He carefully puts his hand to his forehead, saying that it seems there is no temperature. Jumping back, the little girl assures that she is absolutely fine. She is very sorry, it was not worth putting the young gentleman in danger. She will not bother him anymore, so as not to spoil anything. The guy asks her not to talk like that. This is not at all what he wanted to hear when he came. He suggests the girl lie down and rest. They will establish certain rules. It seems the man is not angry at all. Everything now seems completely unreal. And the little girl does not understand how this happened at all. Firstly, the brunette asks her to never humiliate herself. Twarish is too worried about what she does. And these are self-esteem issues that need to be corrected. The girl constantly mentions dirt and calls herself a slave. They don't know that this is all because of a past life that left its traces. It's still worth trying to become better. The most important rule is to never call your father a duke again, because he is different. He has already repeatedly asked to treat him better, and to show this with words and actions. Now the girl is his daughter and has the right to everything in this world. She must understand this in her thoughts. Already getting ready to leave, the young man asks to call Anna if he suddenly needs something. Twarish is getting ready to rest, but it's hard to close her eyes because unnecessary thoughts remain. She has never called anyone daddy, so it's no wonder she feels very awkward. A voice is heard saying that they are finally alone. A talking squirrel is sitting on the bed, outraged by Rudium's reaction. It seems that her voice has already been forgotten. They met near the lake when they were in the forest. With those monsters, the little girl understands that she saw something white. Then it was the main star that they talked about. It is not at all clear why the animal turned into a squirrel, he shouts, saying that this option is also not suitable at all. He had to appear shortly before the child lost consciousness. Rutium reassures her that she didn't pass out because of the little animal, but simply because she used too much energy, and it became clear that the healing power was too much for the girl. Squirrel accepts the question about knowledge and smiles. Her body has existed since the very beginning of the emergence of powers, which were then distributed to other people. Firstly, it is worth knowing that the world is divided into two parts. These sides have two different relationships. One part is the mortal world, where people built their civilization. The second part is a place where the forgotten stars of life sleep. That place was controlled by the great sanctuaries. But one day a war broke out, and they had to suffer damage. After all the battles were over, the four stars decided that there was no point in staying in this world, so they went straight to the humans, where it was believed they would be more comfortable. They penetrated the human body, but people, alas, were unable to accept the power of the stars. The Great One took pity on the other four in order to save the people who received strength from suffering. She did something. The star sent its power into the human world and created a space between the two worlds. Such a portal is located in the monster forest, in the very depths near the lake. After this, one Great One descended into a man by the lake. Of course, by chance, she did not want this. And so Rutium appeared. The rest could not adapt to the world of people, since they were completely weakened, and in the end, they returned to their place in the sky, falling asleep again. Then the power of the stars weakened. This finally led to the end. It was inherited through human blood. But Rudium is something else. When the previous owner of the power dies, the power returns to its original form and wanders in search of a new owner. If spirits directly enter a human body, then power also descends into a person. At the moment, this may seem strange, but in the end, it is not so. Everything makes sense. Over time, people with magic lost control of the star's power and began to suffer. They felt bad because of their past mistakes, but it was difficult to change anything in the world. The great star took pity on those who walk the earth, so it did not deprive them of their powers. But on the contrary, this is precisely what led the owner of the power of Rudium to the lake. It was very naive. Rudium made a contract with other stars to help people all over the planet. The girl can't do the same because she can't leave the world. A contract with the owner is the only way to escape from the world of stars, which is why those voices were so eager to negotiate with the blonde. The only problem is that Rudium's power is just beginning to emerge with the new contract, and due to constant use, the magic has weakened, so the child has fallen into a deep sleep, which was previously a condition for keeping the stars and the lake a secret. This child must forget not only what happened, but also the road to the lake itself. If Twarish used magic without a contract, then this was, oh, so difficult to do. They waited in their world, gritting their teeth. The big star, the most awakened of them all, so she didn't want to end up in the minus trying to get ahead. Tuarish only now realized that the squirrel had attempted to kill her, deciding that this was the best option, but in the end, she changed her mind. The animal realized that this was already a second life, and it was quite easy for her to find out. This child could turn back time that sleeping baby should find out the reason why she returned to the past. The star asks a person to sign a contract with her. It will be very profitable for her, because she will be made stronger than everyone else, creating the illusion of good and more. The blonde turns away. She doesn't need any strength. She just wants to be away from the pain that she already had to experience in her past life. Squirrel said it would be easy, so now she won't have to worry if she makes a contract with the star. Then she will no longer suffer when using the power of Rutiom. The beauty did not understand every detail, because there is too much unnecessary information. But if so, she is ready to receive the best and strongly hopes for a favorable outcome. Rodvik must consider this contract something important. One of the great 6 gods came down to her to make a contract and be by her side. This is always the best. Python says something slowly, trying to pronounce each word more clearly. Her name is already known. The star contract will be signed in a second. There is a blinding light ahead and around. Tuarish, after a while, when everything was over, went to her father's office. She timidly lowered her head and said that she wanted to ask for something. It would be important. The girl is clearly embarrassed to ask for help. Perhaps she wants her father to read a book, but it is too difficult to understand. Deep down, the man envied Theon because he had a good opportunity. The guy exhales and calmly asks what the lady wants. She wants to take the squirrel that sits on her head. The animal is small, so it won't eat much, and especially it's too cute. It's not about the book. The Duke's expression quickly changes. Turish sees it differently. It seems the man is unhappy as expected. The slave can't even have a pet. A sad look falls to the floor. The little girl is about to leave. When she hears that she can take the animal, her eyes instantly light up with joy and a drop of disbelief. Virgo is now Blake's daughter, so she doesn't have to worry about such little things. Next time, don't worry so much before approaching and asking something. Jumping up and down, the lady sincerely thanks him and smiles. Noticing his expression again, she immediately apologizes for somehow disturbing him. Tuarish had already managed to escape without even agreeing with her father about where the squirrel should live. The brunette doesn't know how to make the animal comfortable. Quietly, hoping that the greenhouse will be enough. Theon met a boy who made him frown even more. Standing before him was Robenhof Gibbetsmann, with a chilling ability that only his family possessed. The brunette pretends to say that he heard that guests had arrived at the estate and was glad to see them, although in reality it was clear that he was feeling bad. He really didn't want this meeting. The boy followed his father. A hunting festival was about to take place in which 4 main families with abilities were to take part. An amusing rumor had already reached us that the young man had a relative without a title. This was completely wrong. Theon turned away, saddened by his acquaintance's remark. Jed has repeatedly said that there can be nothing more noble than helping a girl. Tuarish is going out into the world for the first time, and she needs to find clothes and shoes. The servant laughed, saying that he could always take the place of the boy and become a good older brother, since the young master was unable to go with his sister. Then the boy became very angry. He did not understand why his father allowed what was happening, and he had too many questions swarming in his head. Now it dawned on the young man that it was all because of Gibbetsmann. Now everyone was only talking about the girl. The Duke's family was generally very concerned about its good reputation. The little girl might get into trouble, and she needs to be protected from that. The young man asks her not to dream about meeting him, because he has long since sent the girl away. Robinhalf doesn't look impressed. Even if sometimes you can kick out someone unnecessary, the Duke will bring everyone back. Considering that this time Rodwick carried out the adoption scheme, you could say that the brunette became the older brother, and no one even gave him the right to choose. It was something strange. No matter what nonsense Jed spouted, Tuarish would only call Theon that. The boy's imagination already formed a picture, and he began to giggle maliciously. Gibbetsmann moved away a little and quietly asked if everything was okay with his friend. Anna brought the lady to one of the nicest boutiques. The woman who met them immediately began to admire how beautiful the girl was, and the fact that she was brought to her. The blonde quietly calls for the maid. All this fuss makes her head spin. Her identity was supposed to remain a strict secret, but something went completely wrong as originally planned. Of course, you can't show the child to other people, but the lady from the boutique is also part of the Rodvik family, so there's no need to worry too much. The woman had already said that the new name was a gift from the Duke. Many people in the duchy wanted to hide their past, and Blake gave people like her a new name and a new life. Trapette smiles as she says the boutique helped her open Rodvik. She just dreamed of this day, and of course when it came, everything turned out much better. The woman couldn't wait to create a beautiful, wonderful dress for the sweet lady that would look like something sophisticated. Once upon a time, a lady visited the shop and said that if she gave birth to a daughter, the baby's first dress would be from this place, which seemed like a wonderful choice to hers. That person must have been Theon's mother, who died 7 years ago. It seems that every detail of the image and the look in those very eyes are still preserved in my head. The lady must have been a good person, but it all ended sadly. The squirrel says something only Rutiam, who signed a contract with her, can hear it. They are going to transform Twarish, doing everything as it should be. The hair is already like an addition to the image, but they will manage to choose a dress that will make people around them open their mouths. Everyone was waiting for the moment when Madame Trapet's masterpiece for the girl was completed. She went into the dressing room to try on the dress, and then timidly came out into the world. As soon as everyone gathered, sees the beauty, their mouths truly open, the woman screams about the incredible and perfect thing that she has probably never seen before. The muse has come to make you smile, but you shouldn't stop at just one outfit, because she has many more options to try on. Anna takes a stack of beautiful clothes. They will choose the best of them and send them to the palace so that they don't have to drag them around with them. This way, life will be much easier for everyone. The girl sank down onto the sofa and lowered her head. She was already starting to get bored. Jed asks if the little girl is tired. Sometimes it's too hard to stop the maid. She's already seen those sparkling eyes. The beauty cannot stop, just like the saleswoman. The blonde does not want to say anything against. She is happy that she is receiving kind words in her direction, perhaps for the first time in her life. The conversation turns to the young gentleman. It seems they have already become friends after reading. They still haven't seen each other, so the question is difficult. It turns out that the boy is currently being punished. The little girl doesn't understand why her brother hates people so much. The knight wonders how this happened, because it's not true after all. You can't forget something like that. He himself told the truth. The brunette chuckled. Firstly, the young man really doesn't like people, but it's not that he doesn't like his sister specifically. This applies to absolutely everyone. Perhaps it's the smell. If you remember, he asks the girl to wash herself. The young man is the most talented person in the duchy. He is very sensitive to smells and tastes. The girl didn't think it smelled so bad. Of course, in the past, the maids had always insulted her, but she wanted to believe that this was not so, and that it was the problem of those people. There was a loud sound, and then Anna ran through the door with traces of blood that soaked her clothes, and again these birds dispersed, causing problems. The girl notices the stains, but she is assured that the maid is fine. When she was little, she also did similar things, and no one is surprised by anything anymore. The problem is that Trapette has been kidnapped, and it's not clear what to do next. There aren't many options. She could have been kidnapped by Duke Serdia's henchmen. The squirrel is growing together. Why would this family need this? The saleswoman, or rather the assistant, says that it is true this time the Duke has another matter called fur coat. She bows her head, asking for forgiveness. The girl thinks she remembers that Serdia's ability is to transform into animals, namely wolves. It must be somehow connected. Wolves are now associated only with the new family. Python laughs, saying that people have extremely low self-esteem, but falls silent because she sensed the aura of another star. One of the 4 great ones is nearby. Rather, you need to go forward along the street, so as not to lose your way. The tracks are still fresh. This will help. The blonde doesn't understand how they got out of the dream without permission. But it seems that this is not the main thing. Python did something. She controls the human mind. Now the beauty is like a stone on the side of the road. If she disappears, the servants will not notice anything. They are talking about something, mentioning that they need to take the lady back to the estate. They need to quickly find the 4th star. The duo takes off and runs forward along the street. Looking at every shop, the aura is a little lost in the crowd. Now it will be more difficult. Python tries not to show his emotions, but it's even more difficult. Others cannot be awakened. This is rule number 1, and if something happens, it's most likely the end. The little girl decided not to waste a single extra second. She would lend her powers to her subordinate, since in the human world, it was difficult to use her abilities to their full potential. There's no need to worry. There's nothing complicated. Twarish will handle it with flying colors. Rudium imagined that she was looking for a star and pointed her finger towards the arch. The girl stops because there are wolves at the very beginning of the street. She quickly apologizes for accidentally confusing the stars with animals. Squirrel will show how profitable the contract with her is. This is literally the best option. The blonde is asked to break the wheel and then quietly rescue the girl. The power will accumulate in the head again, just like when the maiden was looking for the star. Python will again transmit the abilities, and in the head, there should be an image of the wheel exploding. Closing her eyes and trying to concentrate, the little girl sees how the fire begins to light up. The beast tries to stop her, but she does not hear anything because of the ball of consciousness in which she is located. The heroine hides around the corner because she accidentally blew up the cart. She's worried because she didn't want to do anything other than damage the wheel. The star itself is also scared. The girl absorbed more power than it offered. She may be talented, but it's impossible for her to use her power so confidently. It would be difficult to say what else she's capable of. A wolf's roar is heard behind them. They have been discovered, not giving them time to escape, despite the fact that the heroine blew up the carriage. She continues to be afraid of something. Suddenly, it became noticeably cold. Ice formed around a boy steps forward. It is obvious that he is from the Gebetsman family. It is visible even by the way the boy looks. The girl doesn't understand what to do, whether to hide or wait. Robengulf looks around. He's figured everything out. Only Tarish is left. Stretching her hand forward, the beauty asks not to do anything. She doesn't want anyone to get hurt, so she tries with all her might to convince them otherwise, even if it's difficult. Python screams that there is no point in bowing down and begging for mercy. Only weaklings do that. But she is shut up. Rodvik asks to solve everything with words without force. As she was about to open her mouth, the heroine shuts up because someone grabbed her from behind. It turned out that the Duke had appeared to take his daughter home. The baby was gone for a long time. Her father went to the boutique to check on her. He turns to Robenhalf because he was supposed to return home. The guy pretends he doesn't know, but still gives in. Dad has some business. He had to go back alone. It seems the Duke's designer was recently kidnapped. The hero was just trying to help and didn't expect any problems. Twarish thought they were going to freeze her. But it turned out she was very wrong. The conversation is interrupted by shouts, and Anna hurries to the assembled group, stretching out her hands to the young lady and anxiously asking why she ran so far away. The trapette can be left to Jed. He will figure everything out himself. The blonde looks at the floor. She noticed that, for the first time, she did not feel pain when she used force. Before her is the heir of the Gebetsman family, and if this is really his person, then in her past life, Twarish saw him in the dungeon. There can be no mistake. Because they have already met, the feeling of a strange outcome remains inside the heart without saying goodbye. The girl turns away, not allowing the boy to even open his mouth. Already in the evening, Jed reported on the current situation. Fortunately, the negotiations between Trapet and Sardia were successful. Duke Gebetsman was with them, and Rodvik also made a serious warning. Of course that family loves wolves, but it's not that bad. Because of the issue with the heir, they care a lot about their honor. They understand that there is only one way out, and they have to be careful. This time, it wasn't about the eldest son that was mentioned earlier. The man heard that the youngest son's ability had recently been revealed, which was a shock. They seem like they'll get along. Theon is incredibly talented, and Twarish is a real sweetheart. Nothing will happen if they try to spend more time with them. The Duke changes the subject, asking why no one protected his daughter. The knight apologizes, but in fact, he didn't even do anything. But on the contrary, he tried to constantly take care. The beauty is simply a genius, and hides better than any professional killer, which makes it clear that she has well-developed abilities. She is uneducated, but reads well. If the child goes to the Imperial Academy in a couple of years, he will definitely take the highest place in the ranking, eliminating all opponents. By that time, the lady will be a real beauty, and judging by the way they will line up, Rodvik thinks that everything will be fine with her, but he is not sure whether she will live to see that time. Theon received a letter from Robenhof, who asks if there is a large tower on the territory of the duchy. It seems that his eardrums almost burst from the ringing. Each time the new message is even more stupid than the previous one. Last time the guy said that he found a puppy near the boutique. Something must have happened between him and Tuarish. He needs to find her and ask her to be careful. The young man meets the dog in the hallway and is about to say something, but she covers her mouth with her hands and quickly runs off into the distance. She has no intention of staying close. The girl thought that her brother had already left, but in the end, he came out from around the corner and did not let the heroine leave because he began to ask why she was avoiding him so much, still trying not to open her mouth too much. The beauty says that it has already been put into her head that she stinks. The young man leans closer because he does not hear anything at all. Jed told the lady that her brother was sensitive to smells, and he himself said that she constantly stunk. Now she was afraid that she was hated for this very reason. The hero asks when he ever said such a thing, but soon realizes that it is true. A lot was done in the past. She really did not smell as she should, but that was before. If you think about it, Theon can't say why the girl has stopped smelling, nothing comes from her, and this even makes him a little wary. It's not clear where this is leading. All living creatures have their own smell. Of course, it is not as disgusting as some people think, but it is so elusive that no one can hear the notes of the people around them. The man hates bad breath, and everyone around him always holds their breath when he passes by. He doesn't like those who walk by and feel sorry for him, and not the best rumors are spreading around. After his mother's death, everyone started to treat the boy too carefully, and this also irritates him greatly. He still remembers how he cried, hoping that he could save her. The people around were weak. His mother had died due to pregnancy. Theon thought that he would not let anyone else near him because the event had left dark marks on his heart. The child nearby is too strange, there is no smell, and her presence does not even irritate. If this continues, it will not end in the best light. The young man freezes, but then hits the girl on the forehead, doing it a little lightly. Jumping back, the little girl quietly asks what she did to deserve this, and grabs her head with her hands. According to her brother, she looked so stupid that her hands started itching. Turning around to leave, the young man finally asks her not to worry so much. The lady will never grow up anyway, and there is no point in behaving like this. A smile appears on his face almost imperceptibly, causing the young man to blush. In fact, having a younger sister isn't so bad. They'll most likely be able to get along together peacefully. The next morning, the girl had her first etiquette lesson. She opens the book, but immediately hears Python's voice, who does not understand why all this needs to be learned. The servant had already said that if a member of the Rodvik family started eating with their feet, no one would say anything, because everyone respected the Duke and wanted to live a happy long life. The girl disagrees, because she knows when she will leave the estate and understands the importance of preparing for this event. The squirrel has seen different people, but believes that the owner is unique. The little girl has the monstrous power to draw upon the powers of the stars and use them at her own discretion, adjusting the effect. Despite everything, she does not want to reveal the fact that she has rudium. The animal asks to stop with all this and finally listen to him, because there is definitely something to say. The heroine has a chance to never feel any pain again. If people find out about the beauty's power, she will become popular and rich. But the little girl refuses. Freedom is more important to her, and she has no plans to exchange it for anything else. Remembering the past is especially painful for the girl. If she reveals her power, she will actually get a lot of problems. Python doesn't know this, because she was never in her place. Humans are primitive creatures. They will try to take over the child's abilities and do everything to make her life worthless so that this never happens. The Duke decided to attend the class. The guy went inside the room because when he passed by, he heard his daughter's voice. It's never too late to check what she's doing. The man says that everything is fine, but a dark aura is thickening around him. He himself realized that his condition is worsening after the last time he used his power. The little girl turns to Python, asking how long the boy has left to live. It's impossible to say exactly, perhaps about 2 or 3 years, but no more than that. He has a rather weak body. He was just unlucky enough to be born like that. Tuarish distracts the conversation with his words, about how Madame Michel values persistence in studies, and that at this rate, the beauty will go very far and reach the heights. I want to say something, but my mouth just won't open. The most important thing is rest, and of course, healthy sleep. The young man wishes me a good day and productive studies. The Duke truly considers the heroine his daughter. They will never become family, but I would like him to feel at least a little of this love. Blake will be saved. Jed noticed that the young gentleman had been very quiet lately, although he had previously gone on hunger strike or shouted at every little thing, causing everyone around him to worry. It can already be said that Tuarish has had a positive influence on the boy. Apparently, the boy feels responsible as an older brother and tries to behave appropriately. The topic gradually changes. The knight asks whether the master will take part in the annual hunt, in which the 4 great families of the empire participate. Just recently, the estate was visited by Gebetsman, who arrived just to discuss the future event. It seems the time has come to make a decision before it's too late. The Duke thought about it. He was going to take his daughter with him to the festival, but he was told that it would be better to leave the child at the estate and not drag her around as a trophy. A princess who was once a commoner has no right to just show up at a festival of nobles. It would be like throwing fish to cats to be torn apart, and would not end well. The man doesn't know what Blake was thinking when he adopted the blonde, but if he wants to make her a noble person, it's better to keep her in the estate away from everyone else. The Duke may not live to see her come of age. In fact, Gibbetsman was right away in all the details. As Jed said, she could be sent to the Royal Academy when she grows up. Then she won't be locked up all her life. The conversation was interrupted a little because the door opened and Tuarish appeared there with a book in her hands. She asked to read a book to her because it is the best thing before bed. Of course, the Duke agrees. He almost immediately orders Jed to get back to work. The guy chuckles. He also wanted to enjoy family time, but it seems no one is inviting him. As soon as the door closed, the young man picked up the beauty in his arms and smiled. The idol could not be disturbed, considering that the father wanted to be the one to put his daughter to bed. Half an hour later, it was all over. The girl jumped off her chair and said she would come again tomorrow. The man offered to read longer, but she understood that he still had his own work. The door closed, and the heroine began to jump for joy. She was promised that they would be together longer the next day, but initially she had a completely different goal. While the young man was reading the story, Rudium managed to cleanse his body at least a little. If he continued in this spirit, Dad would recover very soon. He would definitely get better. As she turns the corner, the heroine almost jumps up in fright because her brother is there frowning and asking why she is so happy. The girl asked her father to read. He is a busy man, and it was not worth distracting him, even if in the end she did so anyway. Theon claims that he reads us much better. Last time he did not do so badly. The blonde reminds him that his brother was almost always wrong, but he brushes it off, saying that if the Duchess loves books so much, she should follow her to a wonderful place. The librarian greeted the children at the entrance and smiled welcomingly. If they had any questions, they could ask them to get answers and sort things out faster. The little girl quietly says, "Hello," in response, trying not to stutter at all. Although it seems almost impossible, the Duke asks to show his sister children's publications, and he himself goes to study. The girl thought that he would read with her, but it seems she was mistaken. The guy probably wants to be nearby, but the heir has many activities that cannot be missed. It's strange that the hero said that his father was busy, although he himself doesn't have a free minute. Despite his activities, the hero doesn't allow the girl to get bored even for a minute. The librarian offers to show the premises. The girl could also create something similar, since there are 7 rooms here, and members of the Rodvik family have the right to own their own department. The young gentleman had just gone to his room. Many rooms were still empty, so it would not be so easy to make a choice. But if he chose now, he would be able to use the library for all the coming years. Python immediately shows interest, wagging her tail and pointing to the 3rd room, almost begging the lady to choose it. An interesting force emanates from that place. There are many books inside the room. The brunette says that this place was owned by a former master, but this means that there will be no children's books there that could be suitable for a young lady. The woman promises to wait outside while the child simply looks around. The Virgin takes the first book and sees how the star tries to rest against something hard, as if a passage could be opened there. There was a mirror standing above, which almost fell and broke. The beauty managed to grab the thing and shame her friend for behaving like that. It seems that this is exactly what she wanted. A glowing sphere appeared on the floor and rolled somewhere forward. It almost disappeared, but they managed to catch it. The girl sat down next to it to ask what was going on. In front of the duo is a fragment of a star containing a special power. It was from this fragment that a strange aura emanated, which had not been discovered before. Python is glad that she found the source. A star that dies turns to stone. It has already been said that each one loses its powers when it enters the world of people completely unexplored and different from another dimension. Fragments arouse human curiosity. They even lose the ability to maintain self-control regardless of strength. Each has a different kind of energy. If you come across a fragment of a star, you can use its ability. Squirrel suggests breaking everything to get to the truth, but the Duchess refuses, saying they will have problems if they do something wrong. What is broken will have to be restored, but it will be difficult. The animal only has destructive abilities, so something like this will be difficult. The blonde no longer wants to listen to anything, because if they are caught, it will be the final end for everyone. The conversation is finally over. There is no way to convince her, and there is no point in trying. There is no need to try. The blonde is embarrassed. She was too rude, and perhaps the woman is angry. The squirrel lies on the floor, looking at the ball, which is still on the floor in the container. The girl does not understand who was talking then. But then the voice from the mirror is heard again. In the reflection, there is a boy with blonde hair. The little girl is jumping and screaming in horror. She dropped the thing on the ground and realized that the fragments flew in all directions. Theon yawns a little. He is too tired, but he has finished all his studying today. The brunette finished everything quickly. He needs to take his sister back to the room. Entering the library and meeting a woman, he asks where Twarish is. She said that she wants to look at the third room, where she reads a few books. In the former Duke's dwelling place, there is nothing to do and nothing to play with. The young man climbs the stairs and meets a beauty who flies into him and screams that there is a ghost there. The guy who picked up the mirror from the other side sadly lowers his head. He realized that, as he initially thought, no one would hear him, and no one would help save him from everything that was happening in his own home. The maid opens the door. She has a tray of food in her hands. It seems the boy went into that room again, although he remembers that the Duke repeatedly said that he should not touch the things of his former mistress. The hero lowers his head. His voice is lost, but in fact he just really misses his mother. The woman doesn't care. She asks if the Duke took his medicine. He asks if he can refuse it today, because he feels better. For some reason, the young man is not surprised that he is being refused. The man asked to take his medication daily. He cannot be disobeyed, and therefore no one has the right to refuse. The blonde had long ago noticed that the more pills he took, the worse he felt. The young man didn't want to die, but in the end, it seemed that's what would happen. The hero remembers sitting in the room and looking at his mother's portrait. He loved this activity because at least something allowed him to think that she was nearby. The voices of two people were heard from the mirror. Standing up and approaching the boy, decided to check if there really were people there, and if they could hear his voice. He listened for a few more minutes to the dialogue about destructive forces and more. After the Duke asked if he could be heard, a scream was heard, and immediately everything disappeared. It seems there was a girl there. I would like to hope that they will talk at least once more in the future. The blonde is torn from his thoughts, because the maid is still standing in front of him, waiting for the boy to drink the medicine. He took the bottle and almost immediately felt dizzy. The carriage sets off for the city. Theon says that his sister is not feeling well. First he asked if the little one wanted to go to the hunting festival, and she said that she had a cold and would stay at home. The maiden only started behaving this way when she found out that the royal family would be there. The Duke still had no intention of taking the child with him, so as not to do her a disservice. After the commoner was brought home, Theon changed a little. It seems he really liked her. She is better than the others. Because before that, everyone did nothing but whine. His health also improved. The boy speaks like an adult. He has changed and now behaves differently. Twarish has changed the family a lot, for which we can only be grateful. Gibbetsman was the first to meet Rodvik near the tents. It seems the Duke listened and decided not to take the child with him because her safety came first. The young man has nothing to do with it, but everyone around is interested in where his adopted daughter is. The blonde heard that his friend is aiming for the throne because he wants to get more attention, and that is precisely the reason he takes new children. Condemnation is inevitable, in any case. It is too difficult given all the problems in society. Inheritance no longer has such great significance. The only thing that is important is that children are understood and recognized. Gibbetsman smiles, saying that he sees a caring father in front of him, but in fact he's not the only one with problems in the family. Serdaya also didn't take his son with him, leaving him on the estate. It is already known that the elder brother's strength restrains the younger one, that he inherited the family's abilities. This is the right direction, but hardly anyone will believe that the younger one got sick. Gerver also decided to leave the child at home, without arguing this in public, and pretending that it didn't mean anything. Gibbetsman also heard about this news when he arrived at the scene. The boy's abilities were revealed a couple of years ago. It's strange that he wasn't included in the official meeting. The man constantly acts strangely, so there aren't many questions. Recently, a strange rumor has been circulating, which is even worse than all the others. The Duke often goes to the slave market and walks there for hours, as if he is trying to find someone and cannot find anyone. Every day, the young man uses his powers. The eye of wisdom helps him see the truth, but no one knows who he is looking for. Before this, they said that he does not often use his abilities in order to live longer. One of the families found out that Gerver was looking for Rudiam. The Duke frowned. He knew that there was not a single representative of power left. Gibbetsman also thought so, but their friend had a slightly different opinion. The man points forward. He noticed that there was a crowd of people there, and the brunette himself grabbed someone by the hand. It seems that that person is Theon, who is trying to run away, but they won't let him go. The screams are too loud. The guy is outraged by the fact that the boy has something with energy. He must have found it. It's impossible to believe that he wasn't even looking for anything. The words sound more like nonsense. Blake appeared behind him, asking in an angry voice what the Duke was doing. 3 years ago, he had warned him not to touch his son. The brunette noticed too late that the energy around the enemy had not disappeared. It was only the baby. The conversation was interrupted because a man on a horse appeared. He asks what happened. The magnificent event that was planned to unite the Dukes was almost destroyed. As he drives forward, the hero reminds everyone of his desire to spend everything in peace and quiet. Because of what happened, he removes the Rodvik and Gerver families from participating in the hunt. This would be the best option. The squirrel is lying unconscious on the bed. A cold cloth was applied to its head to bring down the temperature. Jed asks the animal to come to its senses so that the lady does not worry even more. The baby jumped up on the bed and started jumping. It seems she didn't like the nickname, but this only shows how smart she is until she's given a name. She will remain a nut. It's clear from Python's face that she wants a new name. The star asked not to reveal her name, and also said that she knows the location of the person, and that if she says the name, if everyone finds out, there will be problems. There are too many thoughts in my head. It's not clear which option to choose, but leaving the nut is definitely not worth it. It will not end well. The two liked the pecan option the most. Animals like this have a slight fever, so there's no need to worry. Jed asks to call him if anything happens. For now, he has his own things to do. Python is also lying on the bed without any feelings. It is too difficult for her to move. She has no temperature, but the animal has been in the human world too long to feel better. To improve her condition, she will have to return to the monster forest. After a while, they were there. The animal lies on the ground and breathes in the air. After everything she has experienced, she finally feels alive. The star said that she would feel better as soon as she exhaled the forest air. It seemed that the aura near the lake was more favorable. Python dived into the water to swim a little. In 10 minutes, they would return back to the castle. Thanks to the beauty's abilities, no one noticed that they were missing, but it is unclear what awaits them next. They will have to move forward to the victorious end and return. The girl was distracted from her conversation with her friend because she noticed an animal lying on the ground, its body enveloped in Om energy, which was gradually thickening. The creature is seriously injured. The squirrel can help. but says that there is no point in this. If there is an open wound on the body, even cleansing by force will not help, and it will simply die. The blonde doesn't want to listen to anything. She understands what this pain in the body is, and therefore she cannot just leave the fox on the ground. She kneels down to hug the animal. Jed woke up at 4 a.m. because the owner was not at the estate. He had to go out to watch the crabs because there was no one to patrol the area. The guy walked one circle and realized that it was time to go back, but then in the distance he could see the lady. She couldn't be walking completely alone at such an early hour. The little one apologizes. Pekin begged to go outside for a walk, so it was impossible to refuse. If the squirrel disturbed her sleep, maybe it would be better to send her to live on the farm. But then again, Tuarish herself does not like this option. I was curious to know what the matter was, because everyone says that animals are much smarter than people, which is quite logical in some respects. The brunette decided to go check the bushes because he heard some strange sounds. He had made a walk around earlier and hadn't found anything, so some new animal must have appeared. A wolf cub appeared in the distance, the same one he had already seen in the forest. Rodvik doesn't know what to do with it, but serious wounds can't be ignored. The baby can be taken to a doctor to be cured, but for Jed this is madness, because the animal is clearly from the Serdian clan, judging by how young the wolf is. It is the second son of the Duke, whose abilities have recently manifested. If the child is taken away and something happens to him, all the blame will be placed on the Rodvik family. But the Duchess looks at him with two sweet eyes and almost begs to take him with them. Inside himself, the hero asked the gentleman for forgiveness for what he was about to do, but in reality, he hoped that everything would end well and the man would not even find out anything. The coronation takes place after the hunt. The glory of this year's victory shines over Serdia's head. The man sits down and accepts praise thanks to his majesty. Gibbet's man nudges Theon. If something like a showdown hadn't happened, as Rodvik would have usually won, the brunette wouldn't care. For the victory they give several precious stones that can be bought for money. There are also things that cannot be purchased. For example, the boy cites a dessert prepared personally by the emperor's chef. The boy heard that, this year, it would be cookies that Tuarish would like. Theon wondered why the bastard had been getting on his nerves all day, but it turned out to be simpler. He wanted to talk about the dog since he was clearly interested in her. The hero continues to press. He says that you need to think carefully. The guy's sister was previously a commoner. She probably has never eaten such delicious sweets. In his head, the man imagines how the little girl will thank him for the food. He promises that he will bring cookies to Derkidion's estate by any means necessary. But the boy is no longer around. He ran away. Only a few days have passed. The girl checks on the fox cub, hoping that he has gotten better. The doctor smiles all thanks to the fact that his mistress visited him every day and gave him love and care. The doctor says goodbye to the young lady. It's time for him to return to work. But if health problems arise, he needs to call for help. The girl smiles. She carefully strokes the animal. Thanks to regular cleansing, the amount of Om energy has significantly decreased, almost even disappeared. The baby woke up and began to lick the hands of his savior from memories of her past life. The lady knows that the Serdia and Rodvik families do not get along with each other. The Duke would have caused a stir if he had found out that his wounded son was in the enemy estate. Luckily, it seems that neither the doctors nor Jed know that this is an unusual wolf, and the man, as soon as his paw heals, needs to be released back into the wild. He will find his way home on his own. Blake's voice is heard. He seems to have already returned. He thought he could smell an animal from the room, but first he needs to check everything again. The little girl picked up the puppy and said that he was wounded. Her insides clenched. She was worried because she didn't think that the father would return so quickly. It's scary to think what will happen if he finds out that the animal is a member of the Serdia clan. The brunette says nothing and gently places his hand on his daughter's head, his voice soft, as he asks if she wants to keep the animal as a new pet. The child shakes his head. She brought him because he was badly injured. As soon as the wolf recovers, he will be released outside so that he can return to his family. There was relief inside because it seemed the Duke hadn't realized that the man in front of him was Serdia's youngest son, and that's exactly what they would do to ensure that everything ended well. In fact, Blake thought that Rish took the baby because she didn't think that he was a werewolf, and it's better to keep something like this a secret The guy asks to go with him because he brought gifts. Now is not the time for laughter, although the mood has normalized a little. Even Python noticed that the energy around the Duke has become even denser. The aura of a dark color is going inward. The Virgo opens her mouth as soon as they are in the room in front of her. There is a pile of gifts that the man bought. For the first time, he decided that it was worth choosing the best, showing his love. The blonde hurries to open each of them, while the squirrel tries to look inside too, wondering if there is something for her too. Maybe there will be an assortment of nuts in one of the boxes. This man is actually a good father, although he doesn't seem too kind. Python still doesn't understand what happened on the hunt, that his energy became denser. The hunting companion said that the man must use his powers, just in case he was cleansed before leaving, but now it has become even worse. Something more effective must be thought up. Theon entered the room, who by the way also bought some kind of gift that he chose himself. A plush puppy flies into the beauty's hands, and a grin freezes on her face. The squirrel is angrier than its owner. The boy is too sarcastic, as if he is trying to get into trouble. The girl is trying to calm down. She has no reason to argue with a 9-year-old child. It's not all that bad, because the brunette at least considers his sister his family. The father immediately stopped the guy. You can't treat people that a person loves, and who are important to him that way. The girl thanked her brother, and he was speechless, because he hadn't expected it. Jed followed the master, wanting to know if they would really leave the wolf cub in the castle. They have a converted Serdia left in the estate. He needs to be returned. Thank God everything will end, they just dealt with. Trap it the problem should not return, the Duke asks, to quietly send a man to the family to tell them to take the second son. We'll have to act covertly so the eldest doesn't find out anything. The servant doesn't understand if it's right to do this, because it means taking a risk. They might think that Rodvik kidnapped the wolf. The man asks not to worry. It is clear that it would be difficult if not for the victory in the hunting festival. Serdia is in a good mood. Red is probably just laughing at the situation, because he is a fairly simple person. Duke Gerver is a different matter. He has been quiet for too long and is now interested in Theon. The man repeatedly said that he wanted to know where the abilities of people with a special gift end, but in this case, he did not need Rodvik. Every time the hero's golden eyes sparkle, when he looks at his master, his body shivers from an unpleasant feeling that remains in the subconscious. Brunette himself doesn't know what's hidden and what fuels Gerver's interest, so he orders more guards to be assigned to Theon and Tuarish. Even if the Duke's life ends soon, he won't allow anyone to harm his children. The puppy was doing much better in the morning. Rish found him in a good mood, which made her smile. She brought him some food that she took from the kitchen. The girl asks him not to rush with the food, so as not to choke, but he, completely not listening, continues to gobble it up. Python, sitting next to him, asks if this is really the person who turned into a person. She can't believe that this is how he was raised in his family. One of the knights runs into the room, dragging his ally along with him. He was wounded during training, and it seems that this is not something simple, but a serious injury that requires treatment. First, the man is asked to lie down on the couch. One of these knights is someone familiar. It's quite difficult to say what exactly is happening. The squirrel feels something and tries to understand what it is, but nothing works. She will remain on the shoulder of her owner. The doctor apologizes to the lady for not being able to speak to her yet. A patient has arrived in serious condition, and he needs to go get some medicinal herbs. The girl promises that she will be here and wait as long as necessary. The knight is also taken away, because a lot of things will be needed for treatment, which are difficult to carry when you only have 2 hands. The guy does not even have time to agree as he is pushed out. Business cannot wait. The girl doesn't sit still, but on the contrary, gets out of bed and goes behind the screen. It seems that the patient is very seriously injured. The doctor had never been seen so worried before, but now everything has changed because he has to help the person. There is no time for talking. Now the lady needs to urgently see who has entered, because something is wrong in the air. The curtain is pulled back, and the same knight appears, who smiles, saying that they finally see each other. He was waiting for this meeting. In front of them stands one of the stars, the energy of which Python sensed only recently and tried so hard to find. There are not many options left. They will have to run away, because with their current abilities, it will be problematic to fight. The man blocked Rudium's path. The door was locked. His sweet voice asked, "Not to worry, he just wanted to ask a few questions." The man did not understand why only the son of the Rodvik family was purified. It seemed there was not enough energy to save the father, because the contract was only concluded with 1 star. The beauty freezes, because before her is the same gaze that haunted her in her past life. The wolf instantly rushes forward and bites the man on the hand so that he stops holding the little girl by the chin, not allowing her to turn away. Somewhere screams spread throughout the room. Pekin attacks the man, first throwing him aside. She orders him to shut up and leave her contract partner alone. It was with her that they made an agreement, so there is no point in trying it. Will all be pointless, time after time. Lowering his head, the star begins to laugh, fitfully. He didn't know that Python was also here. And by the way, he looks very funny. The nickname God of War has lost its meaning given the appearance that the man has acquired. Now you can officially laugh at him. No matter what the girl looks like, very soon, the person will meet with a fist. The brunette laughs even harder. It seems that a soft paw will not change anything. But in Python's opinion, this is too offensive. And she promises that something terrible will happen. Now she is going to attack. The woman orders Twarish to take the wolf cub and run as far away as possible. If a star in human form uses its abilities, it will be reflected on its body. Moreover, the goddess is now in the form of a squirrel, so it will be much more difficult for her than it might seem. The girl isn't going to run away. The man also retreats, but continues to smile. Judging by how quickly Pekin moves the word rat, she has already managed to get used to this new body. Of course, the moment cannot be missed, because the little girl chuckles. She thought that being a rat was a distinctive feature of the rival. The guy begins to gather strength in his hands. He was glad to see Python after so many years. They finally saw each other, and perhaps it was good, but it was time to deal with her. The squirrel steps back. She can no longer fight in this form. The little girl doesn't understand why nothing happened. She closed her eyes, preparing for something terrible. And when she opened them, the body was lying on the other side of the room because the owner had thrown it away, ordering her not to touch her partner, who was important to her. The time has finally come to leave. Grabbing both animals, the girl rushes forward, listening to Python's screams. She told her to run away even earlier, but the blonde acted quite recklessly. She still has reasons why she acted this way. She wanted to save the girl. The man had already jumped up and was running behind, shouting at Rudioma to stop. They still had many different options that they would have to discuss at the right moment. Jed appeared, pointing a blade at Philip. He did not understand why the knight was bothering their mistress. It's lucky that someone came to the rescue, otherwise the situation could have ended more tragically. The body falls to the ground and the eyes close. Pekin immediately answers the questions. The man can no longer control the boy because he has left consciousness and heart. On the other side of the ball, Gerver screams and slams his hands on the table. He is angry at life and at himself because he cannot believe that Rodvik's adopted daughter has become Rutium. Her power is exactly what he had to search for every day for several years in a row. The voice lowers. The stranger says that none of this concerns him. No matter what, everything has become complicated and an unexpected obstacle has appeared. The young man is left alone with his affairs. No one will help him. The last thing the Duke asks is to tell him whether the future he saw is true, the future where he managed to find the girl at the slave market. The vision almost came true, but of course the stranger does not specify what exactly he is talking about. The brunette is shaking. It's hard for him to contain himself. A half-growl comes out of his chest, which can be heard throughout the room. He screams, promising that he will kill everyone who deserves it. The son standing behind the door freezes, because for the first time, he sees his father so angry and so upset by the situation. The boy realized that it was better not to be seen, and was about to leave. But nothing came of it, because the door creaked a little, forcing him to pay attention. The man ran up to the boy, and grabbing his hands, asked why he needed to eavesdrop. The words about not being able to hear anything don't even seem true. His eyes light up, meaning his powers are coming into use, and moments of how everything happened play out before his mind. The son should have known what would happen if he lied to his father. He gets hit one after another. There was no one outside, but a second later, a servant appeared, called by the Duke himself. He throws the young man back, ordering him to be locked in the room and not given anything to eat. He doesn't care how long it takes. Listening to Inwine's crying is disgusting, and his words sorry are even worse. They are going to lock the blonde in a storage room, not even in his room, just because he is constantly looking for his dead mother. He should have already understood that it is his father who is the main one in this family and estate, and not him, the one who still hasn't grown up. Pekin talks about body control, which is a special skill of Hikenki. She has met many people with such features, in which case this knight named Philip is not at all to blame. Because he did nothing wrong, his body was used. No one will believe the duo, so it's unlikely they'll be able to free the guy. Now is not the time to think about other people. He tried to kill the girl, and after everything that happened, his head should be filled with something else, or more precisely, new plans. Rudium doesn't understand why he needs her. It's completely illogical, but only for her. The man probably wanted to make a contract with the maiden, in order to finally get into the human world. Judging by the fact that he was only able to take control of the body for a short time, his body is still in the grave. The man was most likely going to take over the human world. For now, this is the only option for what is happening. The world of stars is called a grave, because there was nothing there except death. Everything there is completely different than in the place where they are now, where there is a lot of light force. For one reason, the four great stars decided to destroy the boundary between the grave and the human world. Their wishes were only for themselves, but the whole undertaking was too dangerous because such a thing could lead to the complete destruction of the world, which would be mired in darkness. The plan could have been stopped. It wasn't that difficult since only 4 people were participating, but in the end, they couldn't reach an agreement, and they all went together to the human world, which is still living its own life for now. The girl will have to escape from the mansion in which she currently lives. Hikenka will definitely return, because now he knows where the heroine lives. It will not be difficult to guess when he will attack, but the worst thing is that it is not clear in what form. It took time to formulate her thoughts, and finally the beauty says that she does not want to run away if she is not there, and Hikenka does not get anything he can harm other people who live in the Rovik estate. It will be bad for them. Virgo is terrified to imagine that a man will take control of someone and that someone will be in danger. In a past life, Agnes was told that with each of her escapes, the maids would die one after another until their numbers were exhausted. The little girl doesn't want anyone to suffer because of her. Again, Python is also a great star, which means she can sense the presence of others of her kind. She can sense Hikenku the next time he is somewhere nearby. The lady has chosen the path that, although not the easiest, is still the best. The heroine will not run away while she accumulates her strength. She hopes that the goddess of war can become even stronger than she is now, so that she can constantly help. The librarian leads the lady to the part of the library she wanted to make her own. The woman has sorted out all the documents that were there, but the books haven't been moved yet, so there's nothing to read. The maids haven't even cleaned up yet. The blonde waves it off. Nothing terrible happened. She likes everything as it is. Now this place belongs to Twarish. She can do whatever her heart desires, now that there is permission she needs to try to extract the star fragment. No matter how difficult this task may be, there is no choice left. The blonde sits down on the ground and lowers her hands. She still can't believe that she can do whatever her heart desires. Despite the freedom of action, she doesn't want to destroy more than necessary so as not to spoil the room. It took just a little force to extract the piece. Everything happened in just a second. The floor cracked slightly, revealing a white glowing sphere which almost immediately ended up in Pekin's hands. The Duchess herself does not understand what is special about the fragment. Python calmly explains that stars change colors depending on their properties. White is healing and restoration. If the light was healing, then perhaps a person could develop healing abilities. Then those like Hikenka would be like bugs. The little girl can't wait to see what her mistress's abilities are. She asks to close her eyes and concentrate, like on that day when she had to use her powers to blow up that cart. It shouldn't be difficult. After a second or even a minute, nothing happened. Opening her eyes, the heroine looked around, trying to understand what all this was about. The squirrel quickly realized what was going on and hopped forward, pointing somewhere on the shelf. In front of them stands a mirror, which then shattered into pieces, just because of the impact on the floor. It is hard to believe that such a fuss is only because of such a simple object, which is not even a person. He and Pekin have different thoughts on this matter for sure. Sometimes, if you're lucky, a person might show a couple of talents, but the girl doesn't even have the ability to heal. Which is strange. The girl nods, but doesn't really listen to the words spoken. She remembers that someone was talking to her that time. But today it's quiet. The door suddenly swings open, and her brother appears on the threshold. He grabs the girl by the hand and says that they urgently need to run somewhere. There will be no explanation, and this becomes clear almost immediately, but they find themselves in the garden. Robin half calls Lily, and Lotus, two beautiful ladies with light pink hair who are running away. It is better not to take them into the estate. They will stay outside, so as not to destroy everything that is built and arranged. They can never sit still. Only now did the hero begin to fully realize that he shouldn't have taken the children with him. He'd fallen for his mother and grandmother's trick that he couldn't go unless he took his sisters with him. It turned out to be a cheap trick for small children. Wherever the guy takes Lily and Lotus, they always disgrace him. Today, he must check everything for sure. Every time he remembers that very day, he hears the ringing of bells in his ears, which remains in the subconscious, not allowing him to forget whether something is wrong with his health or whether he really likes that girl. The little girls distracted him from his thoughts again, calling for their brother, saying that they found some puppy in the bushes. Gibbetsman had never heard of the Rodviks having a dog, which meant something was wrong, and he had to get up from the bench to check everything again and make sure. For some reason, the sisters immediately want to take the animal for themselves, but it is not so simple. Left alone with the wolf, the hero realized that it was a werewolf, or rather Siegbert, whom he knows very well. The two had met before at last year's hunting festival, since he was with the Serdia clans. Dropping to one knee, the young man tries to make friends with the dog. But it seems that this will be problematic for now, because he is not even allowed to finish speaking. Twarish runs towards him, holding out her hands to the puppy. It seems the animal ran away from her while they were walking in the garden. The little animal almost immediately rushes into the arms of its new owner and begins to try to lick her face as soon as it can. The woman asks in fear why it went outside. She was quite worried when she did not find it in the doctor's office, where she left it to recover. After all the hugs, the girl turns to the guy who is standing with his mouth open and his eyes shining. It seems like the trio from the Gibbetsman family. And if so, it would be better for them to stay away because the animal is already being taken back. The boy nods, unable to properly connect even two words. There's that same ringing in his ears, again, the one that makes him cringe. It happened again near Twarish. The guy reaches out his hand, intending to stop the beauty, but Theon appears in front of him. His friend can tell him what he was going to say to his sister. He will definitely convey every word. Ian lies on the floor and remembers how his mother once held him in her arms, saying that she loved him very much. Surely at that moment, the hero felt peaceful, protected, and in a special way, because all the warmth came only to him alone. The boy woke up and had a dream that he hadn't seen for a long time. Perhaps it was because he fell asleep looking at her portrait. His mother was as beautiful as ever, simply wonderful. Sitting down to the side and exhaling, he says that it seems his father feels hatred. One can even notice that this is a completely obvious fact. I sincerely hope that if everything continues, I will be able to get to the same good place as the Duchess. The same voice of the squirrel from the mirror distracts me from sad thoughts. She says something about a wolf, and then suggests starting to study the star fragment they have again. The boy listens for a little longer, and then makes it clear that he is still on the other side of the mirror. The squirrel jumps up and screams about a ghost that seems to have come back to scare poor people. The partner runs to the girl to ask where she went. The voices seem to have died down again. The guy can't stand it. It's hard for him. He starts shaking slightly. He almost falls to his knees and, sobbing, begs him not to leave him alone. It's cold and scary in this room, and it's not clear when the next time he'll be able to go outside. Python reported that the baby had golden hair, just like his eyes. Perhaps he was also possessed by Hikenka, or perhaps not. The goddess can distinguish the stars, and suggests that he simply has special powers, the same as the other families. The blonde thought they will be able to see each other again. She wants to hope for this. A ready-made puzzle is gradually starting to come together in her head, which makes her think strength and eye color already say a lot. Only one family has such distinctive features. For some reason, the conversation turns to Zig. He will be able to speak as soon as he becomes an ordinary person, again with whom everything is normal. The kid heard the girl called Rutium, and if he is not too loyal, he will tell someone, which will lead to terrible consequences in the future. Most of all, the main character is afraid that her father himself will find out about her true powers. She will try in every possible way to avoid this. She sits down next to Siegbert. In fact, she knows who he is. He probably also knows perfectly well that the Duchess is in front of him. The blonde isn't sure the animal knows what's going on, but his reaction points to that. So all that's left is to wait until the last minute and hope for the best. Since the hero knows who she is, it's better to keep it a secret. The secret will be only between the two of them, not counting Python. Siegbert seemed to nod, but immediately after that, he turned and ran around the corner. Somewhere Rodvik wasn't sure if they understood each other. The topic was a bit complicated. There was nothing to be done. All she could do was hope that everything would work out. Pagan assured her that there was nothing to worry about, and if the wolf blurted out something too much to anyone, they would hit him. Someone behind her gently placed a hand on the girl's shoulder, who turning around froze with her mouth open because in front of her stood a boy of average height with red hair. This was Zig, who smiling repeated again that they were friends, because of course he would not tell anyone about what he heard that day. The energy of was still hovering around his body. The girl smiles. This scenario suits her very well, so everything will be fine. They will of course swear to keep each other's secrets, and this will happen right now. The only question that remains for the lady is where Siegbert got these clothes that he is wearing now. The boy tore off a piece of the curtain that hung a little further down the hallway. He didn't have much of a choice to go back in a second. Despite the pleasant conversation, it would be better to turn back into a wolf before other people saw anything unnecessary in the end. It would be more comfortable for both of them. Diva asks to return to the doctor's office and says that she will come to visit him very soon. The condition should improve. She is glad that everything was resolved, so simply there was no need to be so afraid. Thank God nothing else is happening, and it is time to stay for class. Taking just a few steps forward, the beauty freezes. Because she hears and feels something, the strangeness does not leave her body, forcing her to shrink a little. Rutium arrived in the dungeon because Hykink woke up again since the heroine came again. Perhaps he wants to make a deal or talk. The squirrel shouts that they have already agreed, so it will not be possible to break the deal. The goddess of war has turned into an empty head. The man sharply reaches out and takes the beauty's partner closer to himself. It seems that she has completely forgotten that the contract will be completed when the animal is killed without any regrets. Python screams because some kind of jar with a dark scarlet aura appears in her hands. The little girl rushes forward, but she is stopped. There is no need to worry so much, because the animal will not be killed, but simply the soul will be pulled out. This is not just a glass, but a powerful tool that allows you to sever the connection with this world. From the moment of imprisonment, the Duchess will no longer be able to use the powers of her friend. The body torn from this dimension gradually loses its abilities and plunges into a sleep that can last even 100 years, and nothing will change. If the precious star is to be saved, Tuarish must obey. The girl must decide for herself whether she wants to save herself, her friends, and also those who are most important, her father and brother, who also deserve better. The lady does not understand what he is talking about, but horror is reflected on her face when she sees Hykink bring the bottle to his mouth. Swallowing Python, the hero licks his lips, but says that he doesn't need it right away. He has only 3 conditions. If the girl obeys, then he won't even go near the Rodwick estate. It's not interesting at all, it just happened to be there. Firstly, the man wants the body's owner to be freed, preferably as quickly as possible, and not forced to wait any longer. The innocent knight must not die. The second condition is the revival of Iandwain Gerver. The heroine herself knows the future, so she certainly understands how to do this. The Duchess cannot deny that she knows this man, because it is true she looks straight at Python's body for the last time, which lies in her arms without any remaining strength. Almost immediately, the lady promises that she will do everything in her power to fulfill the conditions. It seems like a deal has already been made, but the last thing remains. The only thing the man still wants is for the little girl to enter the Imperial Academy. He doesn't even think that this is too much, because in his understanding, this is something almost supernatural entering into the rhythm. Going outside, Rish examines the body of the goddess. She is so worried that she feels ill. It is not clear what to do if the baby suddenly cannot wake up. A familiar voice is heard in the distance. The father does not understand that his daughter has forgotten herself in the garden alone without protection. The girl can no longer contain herself and runs to hug her father, whom she misses incredibly much. She feels so bad that no one can offer comfort or help. Just the hug makes her feel a little uncomfortable, and a slight energy envelops her body, making her shake. At this rate, nothing will work, and the Duke will live only 2 years at most. The little girl wants to be useful and do something, but she doesn't understand at all where she should start. She could try to carry out the cleansing without Python, but then she will again have to experience the terrible pain spreading throughout her body. In her head, the child asks her father for forgiveness. Although in reality, there are too many emotions inside her, now we are talking about Philip. The knight just wanted to help her that day. A stranger burst into the office, and he came because he wanted to check on Tuarish's condition. The girl asks to free the man who is innocent. She never wanted to hurt another person. The brunette wants to object, but the daughter insistently asks to believe her. This is perhaps the first request, and it would be good to fulfill it. As a father, the hero will believe in his children, no matter how difficult it may be. The little girl tries to hold back her tears, and thanks Blake, who gently strokes her head. Everything will end much better for them than expected. Several days passed. They of course dragged on unbearably long, which even made her feel a little bored. The lady looked at that very mirror. Apparently, last time the animal saw in the reflection a boy named Iandwin, with whom the main character had not yet had time to get to know. At first, the blonde decides to talk to him to figure out how to help him. She doesn't know how to use a mirror, and this makes the task quite difficult. She has to shake the thing, and then it seems she finally managed to see something new. A weak voice asks not to go, and not to leave him alone in this terrible place. Such words sound especially sad coming from a child. Sitting closer, the Duchess says that she is nearby, and it seems that the person on the other side did not expect that someone would hear and understand him. It would be easier to see each other. Reflections would help to see emotions and more, but not a single mistake can be made. Ian can guess that Rutium is in front of him because he also has an all-seeing eye. The girl timidly speaks of her desire not to show her face. The boy is so lonely that he protests when asked if he wants to talk like that. The blonde is happy that he will be able to talk to at least someone other than his own mind, which has recently been filled with unnecessary thoughts that lead nowhere. The hero wanted to see the girl at least once more, and there was a special reason for that. Perhaps it all lies in the fact that the Duchess does not know Gerver's son, and does not want to kill him. This is the first person who will be sincere being next to the heir, who is already afraid of everything. Sadness takes over the body. After the spoken phrase, one clearly remembers that the Duke explained in the past that he even killed his own child, so that Rutiam would be alone. It was terrible in the past, but now everything is different. However, this does not apply to Ian Vian. He is stuck in the same place and is now suffering. They call the beauty to check if she is nearby, and she immediately nods to make it clear that she has not disappeared anywhere and is still on the other side of the mirror. Although the lady does not know Gerver's son, she sincerely hopes that he will live long and happily because he really deserves it. The only thing that matters in this world is to see different places, meet loved ones who will always support you, and live a full life painted with colorful colors. The guy can no longer hold back a sincere smile. He never even had the idea that someone could wish him a better life, deciding not to get hung up on one topic. He asks why Agnes's ex kept running away from him. When Rodvik first heard the voice coming from the mirror, she was scared thinking it was a real ghost. Laughter continues until the moment when the maid calls the young master. It's time to take his medicine. The little one hopes that they will talk again, but for now it's worth hurrying so as not to anger anyone. Blake told me at dinner that he had interrogated Philip again, and it seemed he had said the same thing as Rish. So he had been found not guilty, the work had already been done. Hikenka had managed to convince him that everything was fine, but the only one who still didn't trust him was Theon, who was shouting that he was against his sister's initiative. They made this decision after careful consideration, so there will be no turning back. In any case, no one gave a choice, so the boy should just listen to what they tell him. The man decides to tell his daughter something. In fact, the wolf cub she was looking after is the son of Duke Serdaya. The little girl pretends to be clueless, as if she had never even suspected the possible potential. Before it seems, the child became very attached to the boy, so the Duke patiently waited for him to recover, which is how it all ended. He was taken back home to his parents and subjects. While the brunette was saying something, he without noticing it began to cough. His hand automatically reached to his mouth, and when he took it away, he discovered that there were some traces of blood, or rather a dark liquid left there. The two children froze in horror, not immediately understanding what was happening. The father simply denied it, saying that everything would end well. The girl says goodbye to Zig, who sadly lowered his head. She asks him not to be so upset, because at least all this time they had fun being together and playing. And this, it seems, is the most important thing the blonde promises, that next time they meet, they will be able to play even longer than before. And in that case, everyone will be happy. Jed and the gentleman stayed aside, just to calmly observe everything. It's good that the baby isn't crying because of the separation, and is behaving relatively calmly. The only reason is the fact that Rish is not a stupid child at all. She understands what's what, and won't get upset over trifles. Duke Serdaya has also already arrived. He bows his head, greeting his acquaintance, and thanks him for his help. Now it turns out that he will remain indebted to Rodvik for what they did not even suspecting who is in front of them. The brunette calmly asks what the man plans to do with this in the future. Whether the acquaintance really doesn't understand or is pretending to disown everything in every possible way, it should be obvious that the son was so badly hurt due to the fault of the elder, who again showed his abilities on him. If the situation that arose is not corrected, everything could repeat itself again, until one day it will be too late. Of course, it doesn't concern the other family, but he wouldn't want to see his daughter even a little sad about the potential loss of a new friend. They're unlikely to listen to him, but the most important thing is to issue a warning, in which case the Duke has an idea. There's no need to worry. In the evening, the main character, as usual, was getting ready for bed when someone knocked on the door. A little girl appeared on the threshold and asked if she could be read to again. This option seemed the best for her. She didn't want to be left completely alone in a dark room when she could receive a drop of love from another person. The boy led the child into the room and, laying him down on the pillow next to him, began reading. At the moment when the princess saved the prince, the lady had already fallen into a deep sleep, as she was probably very tired. It was impossible not to notice that although at first she was embarrassed to call him father, now she comes every night to spend a little time together. Blake still sometimes wonders if the child really considers him her father, but the answer can only be obtained by asking directly. There are no other options. While covering the girl, the man quietly thanks her for the effort she made, and for the first time opening her soul and heart to someone, allowing them to know the real her. It seems the pathetic guy has very little time left to live out the rest of his life. He wants to apologize for not being able to take full responsibility for the fact that he took the girl only at his own discretion, depriving her of his home, which, despite all the horror inside, was an important part of his life. The boy is sad that things didn't turn out so well, but for some reason he is sure that the Rodvik name will be able to protect their future, doing everything to ensure the baby has a good childhood. Even if the man dies, which is ultimately waiting around the corner, very soon the name and duchy will always be with her, trying to take her under their wing. Only half an hour has passed. The beauty carefully opens one eye to check if her father is asleep. He really has already fallen asleep and seems to feel nothing. Her hand quickly reaches for the young man's palm. She needs to cleanse him of the energy, and if possible, remove as much of it as possible, before he wakes up sensing something is wrong. Something in that moment grabs the heart, makes it shrink completely, and not understand what is happening. The little girl is thrown aside. She does not know what to do, this time after the cleansing. All the power did not disappear. And even after the procedure, almost every night it does not get better without Python. It is impossible to use the abilities properly. There's only one option left that will have to be used for anything to work out. The girl takes that same pearl out of her pocket. Her friend said that the star can restore abilities, and also that it can store healing abilities. So even if the heroine uses her abilities every day, she will be able to heal her body normally. In fact, the beauty becomes very scared. She does not know if she is ready for such an important step, but in the end, she brings the object closer to her body. It is not clear how much pain it will cause, which only makes it even more scary. It is worth trying. It is never too late to start something. Tuarish has no right to lose her father so easily, who deserves the whole world, which will always be better if he is alive. The heroine experiences torment, but lights up with joy when she sees how she completely cleanses the man. She understands that she can officially be proud of herself, but this is where the good ends. A cough begins. Morning has come, and the first rays of sunlight penetrate into the room, calmly jumping across the bed. The hero does not understand what is going on. He feels quite rested. His head does not hurt at all. Although before this, almost every time the horror came with different symptoms. Looking around, the gentleman doesn't understand what to do with Tuarish, who seemed to be falling asleep next to him. There are even more questions when a frightened Jed runs in and goes with the young man to the doctor's room. The old man is sobbing. He is faced with such a situation for the first time. No remedy can stop the bleeding. It is simply so strong. Only now the guy begins to gradually put one piece of the puzzle together and begins to understand what's what. Everything was obvious from the very beginning. During their first meeting, the former Agnes's own uncle almost sold her as a slave, and by pure chance at that very time, Gerver was looking for rudium among the people at the slave market. During the hunting festival, the Duke behaved even worse, pestering Theon and asking if he had found the one, and why he was hiding it in the castle. The zeal with which the Eye of Wisdom searches is not the power itself, but the daughter of Tuarish, in whom all this is contained. The man had long ago learned that she was not in the market, but someone had taken her and seemed to have sniffed out where he should now look. The little girl at their first meeting asked if they would hurt her. She was especially afraid of this, and this pain was clearly manifested due to the purification of Omrish had been sacrificing herself all this time only to save the Rodvik family, which would have gradually sunk into darkness if not for this little child with her plan to purify the body. The man speaks with anger in his voice, which is difficult to miss. Tuarish must survive, and this time it is not an order, but a real request. A little later, the young man has already moved to his office to talk with Jed. He wants to know how many people have already examined his daughter, and in total it is 8 people, while 4 more doctors are still awaited. If they need something, it will of course be provided. If they manage to save the girl, the person will be given any reward that he himself wishes to receive. The brunette listens to all this and chuckles a little. He thinks that this is right, but at the same time he does not quite understand whether it is worth doing all this. News of the reward could spread, and it could attract not only doctors to the estate, but also other fickle individuals who would only bring trouble to this family. People even came who offered their children in exchange for the young lady, and did not want to leave after the servant's words to go home. The brunette refuses to take anything away, even if rumors spread like wildfire. It's better than doing nothing. If he doesn't save Tuarish, he'll blame himself for the rest of his life. All other problems are solvable. The little girl has done so much good for Rodvik and his son. He'll save her even at the cost of his own life. The blonde man enters the office and calls the gentleman. He didn't want to distract him from the important conversation, but it seems he will have to go outside, because a bright red wolf came to the main gate. The two exchange glances, because each of them instantly understood who exactly they were talking about. Now they will have to go out to check everything again. The knight leads to the gate on the ground, near which sits a wolf cub with devoted eyes. He arrived early in the morning and has not left this place since then. The knights who first noticed him said that he came from the northern wing. There is usually no one in that direction for one simple reason. There is a forest of monsters there. Even an adult cannot survive there alone. And it seems that Siegbert ran through all the obstacles, risking his life. just to meet Rish. His actions show how much affection for the girl developed during those 2 weeks of courtship. There is nothing else to do, the gentleman asks. To let the baby inside. The knight asks for the last time if the man is sure this animal, unlike last time, is now the heir of the Duke of Serdia, which he was made quite recently. The differences are big, and if something happens, the responsibility will be much greater. The guy asks if the guy heard about the rumors that had already spread. Sieg became the heir, defeating the firstborn of the Duke, who is 6 years older than him. A recent conversation with the man pops into his head. This is exactly the idea he spoke about earlier, the last time the wolf cub was returned to the family. The brunette couldn't even imagine that the leader would force his sons to fight against each other. This werewolf had a strong opponent because the eldest was well prepared. But the little one, although he was wounded until he bled and could no longer move forward, still decided not to give up. Many say that Zig won thanks to his persistence, which he has no shortage of. The animal's body is indeed covered in wounds. Some of them are not so terrible, but blood is visible from some. Despite all the pain, he still came to the Rodvik estate, which is too far away. You can't say that he has no guts. The future will be good. Jed, standing behind, finally speaks up, as he noticed that the gentleman had become a bit lost in thought and wasn't listening at all. The heir wasn't just a family member, and he wasn't sure if he should be allowed inside, when it would be easier to leave him waiting outside the gates, so nothing would happen. If the boy had arrived in this place as the one to receive the throne of Serdia, he would not have been in such a deplorable state. He would not have had to suffer so much, and further go through the forest of monsters to achieve his goal. It is immediately clear that the wolf arrived as a friend of Blake's daughter. And nothing more, he was sent immediately to Tuarish's room. Theon stands next to the bed, quietly asking his sister to wake up, using as an argument the fact that even the girl's new friend has arrived. The animal's sad eyes make the heart clench. He jumps onto the bed and begins to lick the beauty's cheek, which the guy really doesn't like. Screams are heard in the room. The doctor took Zig away, believing that he would first have to treat the wounds that were preventing him from functioning normally. The brunette tries not to pay attention, but it was all too complicated. He turns to Killen, asking if his sister would recover. In his head, memories of his mother, who left them after her illness, filled his head. The hero can't hold back tears freeze in his eyes, because of the image he created for himself. Sometimes those around him forget that he is still a little child who feels pain inside his heart. The Duke does everything possible to help his daughter, and of course, she will recover. You need to trust your father. The situation will end on a good note. The doctor lifts the gentleman from his chair and asks him to come with him. The young lady should not be disturbed so much. She vitally needs to get more rest. And then perhaps tomorrow she will open her eyes as if nothing had happened and smile her radiant smile at the whole world. The guy no longer understands how to feel about this. The more time goes by, the more difficult it becomes in his soul. The Duke does not understand why the girl did this and why she saved him while directly harming herself. Every action must have its meaning. She probably did not want to lose her father just as much as he wanted Tuarish to be near. The young man volunteered to be a father. He was the one who found the child and took him into his home, intending to take good care of him, making his life a little easier. But in fact, he did nothing to help him achieve happiness. The brunette sits next to him. He still feels too lousy to say anything, but he promises that he will do everything for the one next to him. The hand tightly squeezes the palm, which seems to have just moved. The man is trying to understand what will happen now. But he could not predict that the blue eyes will suddenly open and a smile will appear on the face. The girl is glad that her dad has recovered, and he is happy that she is back with them a second later. The heroine is in a tight embrace. Ian Vane is sitting near the wall. He leaned his head and tried not to think about the bad thoughts still come back, making him understand that it is not so easy to distance yourself. Exactly 7 days have passed. But the girl on the other side of the mirror still hasn't returned, although she promised that they would see each other again. Something is wrong, because before she came to chat every day. A soft voice is heard. Ian immediately jumps up, saying that he is here and has not gone anywhere. The first thing Rish asks for is forgiveness. She was very ill, so she was unable to contact through magic. The girl wanted to talk to her friend as quickly as possible and was constantly thinking about it. The guy can't believe that they were worried about him even when the illness was getting the better of him. But this news brings a slight smile to his face. He talks about how he was doing all this time. The hero was sitting in the room and drinking his medicine. Everything was as usual. Rish noticed that these are the same pills that his father scolds him for if he doesn't take it. The girl decided not to delay and asked what he thought about entering the Imperial Academy. He said that the more medication he took, the worse he felt. If he entered school, his father would no longer be able to influence his son so much or force him to do something he didn't want to do. Ian agrees in some ways, but if he goes to the academy, he will only be able to return home during the holidays and may no longer be able to talk to his only friend. This is not true. The girl is also going to enroll, and they may see each other. The question of a direct meeting is quite difficult to answer. Anna interrupts the conversation. The lady has not yet recovered, but has already escaped from her room. It is time to return back, considering that the wolf gentleman is already waiting there, who came especially to visit his friend after her serious illness. The girl quickly throws out words about how she urgently needs to leave. There is absolutely no time left, and hurry is the most important thing in any case. They will have to talk later, again. Ian is left completely alone. He puts his head on his knees, thinking about the academy if he manages to get in. Then they will be able to talk more often. The girl saw Zig and immediately ran up to hug him. Rish was even a little angry that the little one came back covered in wounds. She said that there was no need to visit her friend because she had to overcome the forest of monsters first. Even if it was faster to go through that place, it didn't mean that she had to use the dangerous path. The brother sitting next to him on the bench is eating something and seems to be against what they are talking about. The little one thinks that there is no problem because this is not the first time the wolf cub has overcome the distance that lies between them. Perhaps he has managed to learn to survive in the forest, and this is the most important thing for now. The girl hugs her friend and agrees that he is no longer so weak that he needs to be taken care of like that. She is only now beginning to understand that the animal seems to be growing in size each time significantly. Deciding to change the subject, the girl asks what the young man forgot in the garden. He wasn't going to play with them, but the words don't sound convincing. The guy was told to look after the wolf cub. Blake had a proper conversation with Siegbert, so that he understood what was going on. First of all, he was allowed inside, because he was a friend of Twarish. If the kid wanted to come to the Rodvik estate in the future, he should never leave his wolf form this way. He could fool some people. Theon reminds his friend of his father's order. This is the most important thing, because failure to comply could end very sadly. If the animal suddenly does something strange, the boy will immediately report it to be taken away and not allowed back, perhaps ever again. The boy reached out his hand to give the wolf cub a little slap on the head, but the wolf cub suddenly grabbed him by the sleeve and pulled him somewhere to the side. A second later, they both found themselves in a puddle, after which the water got everywhere it could. Siegbert didn't care, and he simply shook off his fur a little, continuing to send the drops in different directions. The stupid animal will get what he deserves, and will see the power of Rodvik. It will be some kind of revenge. The guy gets up from the puddle and hears his sister laughing. If the girl is so happy, she will also get what she deserves. It shouldn't be funny to see her brother, but you can't turn back time. The blonde jumps up and tries to run away, letting out wild screams. The children returned after sunset, but each of them was covered in mud and water. The Duke looked at their clothes skeptically, but then exhaled. They looked like they were having a lot of fun, sitting down. He began to wipe the girl's face with his sleeve. Jed helped clean up the young gentleman, and recalled that he had gone there to look after Siegbert, which ultimately did not happen. The beauty is truly happy. She can't even explain what she's thinking about. There's no certainty in her head about how long this happiness will last. There's more and more energy around her older brother and father, which only grows every day. After cleansing, they get better. But each time the effect is short-lived. Perhaps there is another way that the beauty has not yet found. She needs to think about what she can do in the near future. The girl wants to ask the Duke some question. She clears her throat a little and tries to get herself in the mood to be allowed to do what she has to ask for. If the older brother enters the academy, they won't be able to just play around like that. So the blonde makes sweet eyes and begs that she also try to enter and pass the exams in order to study with Theon. These words made the Duke freeze. He didn't understand why she needed this, but it seemed he couldn't refuse. Only 3 years have passed, which lasted quite a long time. The gentleman decided to visit the academy because Rish will be entering there very soon. He just wants to ask the teachers to take care of the baby and pay attention to her. Like all the other aristocrats, the two talk and then follow along the corridor of a beautiful estate. Jed doesn't quite understand where this is all leading to. The hero didn't do this even when Theon did, saying that nothing would happen. Ultimately, the boy became the best student in his class, making everyone else very happy for him and proud of his achievements. Perhaps the concern is justified by the poor health of Lady Tuarish, which has recently worsened. The little girl is overprotected. She deserves to decide for herself, despite the fact that she is still technically a child. Even though this is true, and it is acknowledged, the Duke can't help himself, and in fact, he doesn't even try, because he doesn't see the point. The girl is rudium, nothing should happen to her. Added to all this is the problem that Rish for some reason decides to hide from everyone, the fact that he possesses one of the most powerful magics. There is no choice but to follow his daughter's example. Most likely they are on the right path. The right decision was made, considering what kind of person Gerver is. 3 years had passed since the last hunting festival 3 years ago. And since then, the man had not tried to give up his plan, which means that he had not lost an ounce of interest in Tuarish, or rather, in her powers. The first attempt was that he sent a spy to the mansion, who watched the child and chose the moment to separate her from the others. In the end, Blake even had to find a double of a girl of the same age, just to hide her from observation, because in those moments, the Eye of Wisdom was used, trying to find a loophole. After the last one, the guy seemed to lose interest, at least a little, and lay low. It is not clear how long he will last, but even if he is making an insidious plan, the most important thing is that he does not touch the child. Blake is aware that the Duke's son is studying at the same academy in his second year. He will have to be more careful and ask his daughter to behave in the same way, so that the two do not have a single chance to cross paths. If this happens, the end will be guaranteed. For sure he can work for his father and pass everything on to him. In the corridor, the man, of course, bumped into the boy. He was so immersed in his thoughts that he himself did not notice how he appeared in his path. The boy immediately bowed his head, greeting the Duke. They saw each other several years ago at the hunting festival when his family was suspended due to an altercation. The brunette isn't really listening. He's interested in something else, so he grabs his interlocutor by the chin with his fingers, asking if he had the same color pupils back then. He knows that all people with special abilities have golden pupils, but in his case they are now some kind of gray shade that no one even recognizes. It's clear that the blonde is worried, and even shaking a little, but he's trying to pull himself together and give a normal answer. In fact, his father ordered him to wear a medallion around his neck while he continues his studies at the academy because he must acquire all the knowledge on his own. This is the most favorable option for being the strongest. The superpowers a person needs can only be acquired by going all the way to the bitter end. This pendant prevents the use of these powers, but the magic prevents the removal of the jewelry, so there is no other way out. The reason is plausible, but Rodvik doesn't trust Gerver. He doesn't know what he's up to this time. Rish is better off staying away from suspicious friends, but he sincerely feels sorry for this boy. Before leaving, the Duke said that if the hero suddenly needed any help, he could always ask Blake about it, and he would try to solve the problem. There was a commotion in the class. Many already knew that Durkadion's sister would be among the newcomers. She entered a little later. Although she is the same age as him, she is a commoner. Some kid doesn't call a girl lady. He just calls her names, and even after his deskmate says that her brother might get angry if he hears it, he just laughs. There's no point in thinking, because Theon hates the girl with all his heart. The brunette heard how recently, when the guy was asked about her existence, he got angry, which once again confirmed all the guesses. The beauty is probably disgusted by her own family. Although given her background, this is not even strange. Others agree that they would also be angry if some commoner suddenly appeared in the family, but she is lucky because she is second in line to the throne. Considering that the lifespan of people with abilities is not that long, it will be a little easier to climb to the top and take the title. The girl asks to be quieter because Ianwine is sitting in the hall, who who also has power and can be offended. The conversations stop as soon as the teacher enters the hall. She begins the roll call and marks everyone, but once again, she has to stop at Siegbert, who as usual is not in his place in the audience. The woman had already warned Serdi several times that if he missed class even once more, he would not be able to receive the top grade that was valued. It seemed that the words seemed like a joke to him, since he still did not show up. The boy should know what serious consequences awaited him. One of his classmates would pass the information on to him. Ian sits and dreams. He doesn't even listen to the words, because he's not very interested in it. He knows that today is the day of the entrance ceremony that girl said that she would come of her features. The young man only knows how her voice sounds. It resembles the sweet singing of birds. He sincerely hopes that he will be able to recognize her when he meets her and have a normal conversation. The heroine stands before the entrance to the Imperial Academy, and next to her is her father and Philip. Before such an event in life, there is surely a drop of excitement left inside, which will linger in the mind. Here the Duchess's joyful school years will begin, and the man will lay down his life to protect her and ensure a good time with her friends. The blonde nods, but reminds her that there is no need to risk her life. His life is also precious. It is his duty, and the man is glad that the mistress chose him. So now he will have to repay. It seems the guy likes how the next year will go, and he himself wants to be nearby, going to school. Philip remembers how Anna and Jed ordered to keep a close eye on Tuarish. She can't even imagine how fierce the competition for the honor of serving was. So if you don't take risks, acquaintances will probably make it, so that you will have to regret the day you were born. It's a little scary to think about it, but in reality, everything is not so bad. The knight was chosen for protection, because he could be possessed by Hikenka at any moment. It's a bit of a pity that the guy is so happy inside, although ultimately, the reason lies in something more important. The girl is not going to tell her true intentions. She will stay aside, allowing him to rejoice a little. That spirit promised that the girl would be able to meet Python again, only if she entered the academy. This was one of his conditions that were set out first. Turish rushed forward, trying to enter as early as possible, but due to her age, she was able to get into the place only after 3 years of good preparation. There's joy in her head, because very soon she'll be able to meet the goddess of war. No one knows what the beauty is thinking, but her mood has improved. A crowd is gradually starting to form in the distance. This only means that the ceremony will begin very soon. Tuarish will go there with the Duke. The time has come not to be afraid. The Duchess will definitely save her friend. She proudly raises her head, the two follow forward, and hear someone begin to whisper about the commoner's origins. No one thinks that the right decision was made. The Rodvik family has special abilities, but only a person who is not of sound mind would take a commoner into the ducal family. Some begin to think that the blonde was illegitimate. Philip gets angry and asks the gentleman if it should be sorted out, but he brushes it off since today is the ceremony for Rish. It is better not to cause a commotion that could ruin the whole impression of the first day. The man watches the child look around with interest. It's time for him to return to the duchy. He hopes the girl can handle it on her own. The little girl nods vigorously. She's from the Rodvik family, so such a simple task won't take much time or effort. The blonde promises to write letters a little more often, which will then receive a response. Stepping forward, she claps just like the first-year students. It's time to head to the classrooms. There, the professors have already prepared the material for the first day, which, given their knowledge, won't be very difficult to complete. Rish hears a familiar voice calling her, and turning around freezes, because Theon and Robinhalf are standing in front of her. They came to see each other, so the girl is going to hug everyone, although not right away, but she realizes that the two should be in class. It seems that a decision was made to skip, despite the fact that this is strictly prohibited. Gibbetsman steps forward and pushes his friend aside, saying that he, unlike him, knows nothing. The boy is on the committee organizing the entrance ceremony. This is something he can even be calmly proud of. They haven't changed at all. They are still just as funny and smiling. The girl says that it is very cool that the young man is on such a committee. The words hit him right in the heart, and he almost fell to the floor. He has to ask if his friend is okay, but the brother suggests not paying attention to him, because his behavior sometimes goes beyond all bounds of what is permitted. Theon turns to the side and points forward down the corridor. They walk the girl to the class. She is not going to go anywhere, stops and raises an eyebrow because she does not need help with such a simple task her father assigned Philip, who if possible will always be nearby, so that if anything happens, he can protect her. Sinka is about to leave. Rodwick tries to stop her one last time, but then she breaks down and starts screaming. He probably doesn't even realize how expensive it is to study at the academy. There's no need to keep looking for excuses to skip classes. Study harder and try, so that Blake is happy with the successes he sees. The knight set off with his mistress. The ceremony had just taken place, but she was already quite tired. The heavy workload was making her nervous. Security guards were forbidden from accompanying students in the classroom. However, Hikinka wouldn't possess a body when the main target wasn't around. For now, this was the beauty's only hope. She had to say goodbye at the door. Tuarish can't even imagine how it happened that she entered the academy, because in the past, it wasn't even some kind of dream. Her father asked if his daughter could handle it. So there's no need to let her down. She will try and put in all her strength until the very end, just so that everything goes well. To begin with, the plan will remain the same. Saving Python is the most important thing, and then they will all be happy for the rest of their lives. A picture of happiness that cannot be taken away has already formed in their head. The door creaks, and a teacher enters immediately, ordering everyone to be quiet. It turns out her name is Rumbella Ismatic. She will be the one teaching the first lesson, which should go relatively well. Before it starts, she must expel the offender, and then the first materials will appear on the board. Behind him sits Siegbert, who is not even in the stands, but on a table in the form of a turtle which just moved. Many students thought it was just a statue, but it turned out that the young man entered quietly, trying not to distract anyone, and transformed. He approaches Rish and says that he came because he was very bored. The little girl wasn't even given a chance to respond before Rumbella started screaming. Serdia had dared to skip her morning class and had come to all this to disturb the first-year students. He would be severely punished for the way he had behaved, and his actions would serve as a lesson in the future. Tuarish Rodvik was asked to follow the teacher. At first it seemed that she would also receive punishment, but they approached the principal's office. There is a commotion inside the room. The teachers have never seen such high numbers written on paper. They represent the power that a person possesses. The girl's abilities are at the level of 98 out of 100 existing for an ordinary person. This indicator is usually no more than 5, and for people with innate magical abilities, from 10 to 30, even those who were born into a family, with special powers, only 50 to 60 points. But as a rule, this is no more. Someone on the committee must have made a mistake. There can't be any other options. It's true one of the teachers denies it. He can't remember the last time they made a mistake. The director is also asked about his opinion, but he doesn't have time to answer, because Tuarish enters the room with Rumbella, who brought her in on orders. The little girl was called because of her magical abilities test results. The blonde immediately realized that every prospective first-year student took this exam before the entrance exams. It was one of the most important parts of the admissions process. In order to see for herself, the lady is handed a sheet of paper with the results. Since she knows nothing, she asks if it is normal to get a 98. The teachers are vying with each other to shout such talent cannot be acquired. Even for money, such people are almost never born. They are unique among themselves. The director barely audibly rises from his seat and quietly asks again to make sure that what he heard was true. This, as we know, will be enough to put the Udik Academy in its place, which for many years treated others as a second-class institution. The old man seemed to have gone a little too far. He sat down on a chair and apologized. However, in view of these results, he would like to offer something to Miss Tuarish. She might agree, and thus gain more privileges. The girl has the right to transfer from the general department to the magic department, where a scholarship will be paid for 8 years, which is given to all star students who stand out from the rest. The blonde froze in surprise. She certainly didn't expect this when she entered the office, and she had to promise to think about it and return with an answer. I remember a conversation with Python when they were all still together and came to a picnic in the garden. In the human world, stars are called magical power. Wizards have exactly these abilities, and there aren't many of them. They have been connected to this world for a very long time, so everything originated earlier. People had cleverly learned to use the power of the stars, which was leaking here and there, and the goddess thought that becoming a sorceress might be a good option. As is known, rudium was created by the most powerful star, which would allow her to surpass all her allies and opponents. Surely Tuarish got such a high result on the test only because she is a natural healer. If she studies magic, she will be able to cleanse people from even without the help of Python. This is exactly what the beauty has long desired to obtain, but now does not know how to react. Both father and brother are still healthy at the moment, but a little time will pass, and destructive energy will accumulate inside again. The girl would like to cleanse not only her family, but also Robenhalf and Sieg, who have always been kind despite their origins. The heroine counts on her fingers who she can add. It would be better to write down Duke Serdia and Gebetsman as well. There are many advantages to everything. With the scholarship, Dad will have to pay a little less for his studies, so the budget will be planned more rationally. Ianduin also comes to mind, about whom the lady has not heard anything since she said that she was entering the academy. She promised to talk to him through the mirror during the holidays. When the girl asked about Gerver's son, they didn't really tell their friends anything. Robinhalf tried to smile and understand why the beauty was so interested in that man. But his brother couldn't restrain himself at all and started to get aggressive. Now that the blonde is at the academy, she can figure everything out herself. She doesn't need help as much as she did before. She will be able to cope with the task. Even if it takes some time in the corridor, the lady met Philip while he was waiting for the woman. Some girl suddenly fell on her knees in front of him. The knight helps the stranger to get up, but then two men appeared behind her and asked Celine why she was sitting on the floor. The first possible scenario is that the green-haired man pushed her down. The woman screams that this was not the case because they were trying to help her. A crowd formed around everyone was shouting that they were on the girl's side, and Rodvik's people wouldn't get off so easily, although they shouldn't be at the academy at all. They began to put moral pressure on the beauty, ordering her to answer and tell the truth. The stranger turns his gaze full of hatred to Philip and Tuarish, and then spits out offensive words like master like servant. Maybe it's all because he also comes from a commoner background. The lady tries to defend the knight, saying that he did nothing, but he promises that he will figure it out on his own. The man quickly realized that the students gathered nearby did not like the fact that Rish was not from a noble family. No matter what she said now, no one would listen. They despised her and created a commotion to ruin life at school. Celine, who is also trying to explain herself, is still not being listened to by anyone. They lift her up and try to hug her, while the knight is ordered to kneel and ask for forgiveness, unless of course he wants to tarnish his master. Someone steps forward. People around them move aside so that the boy appears in the middle of the circle. If the gentlemen really want to know the truth, it is best to trust Ian because he can tell how everything happened down to the very last detail. Because the girl hid behind the mirror during their conversations, she couldn't see the guy's face, but she was absolutely sure that it was her friend standing in front of her. His voice couldn't be confused with anyone else chattering in the narrow corridor. The beauty caught herself thinking that she was glad to see him healthy. The blonde wanted to start the story, but the stranger beat him to it. She finally shamed her friends and began to push them towards the exit simultaneously, asking for forgiveness from Rodvik and her guards. Children can be cruel, and today's situation was no exception. Finally, the showdown is over. You can breathe easy and stop thinking about the worst. Philip thanks, assuming that the blonde is from the Gerver family. The guy waves his hands, saying that in fact, he exposed their lies with the help of the same lie. He could not come up with anything better. Pointing to the medallion, the handsome man notes that he cannot use his powers due to confinement, all because his father is worried about his poor health and decided to set some restrictions. The only thing Ianduin really asks is to keep the truth a secret from the other students. They must not find out, the servant smiles, promising that he will keep his mouth shut. The guy turns to Tuarish. He is glad to meet him and is sure that they will become friends. It seems that the lady is not going to greet the young lord. She hides behind Philip's back and remains silent until she asks her friend to lean a little closer to make it easier to whisper. Of course, the lady does not ask her questions right away, hoping that she will be able to carry out her plan. Rish asked how she could repay him for his help. She did so through the knight who conveyed the information to his interlocutor. Nothing in return was needed. The young man hoped that they would meet very soon. Being friends was all that was important now given the circumstances and the situation. The two who caused the commotion in the corridor are standing in the courtyard. Celine left them and went to the medical center because she had a headache. One of them is complaining about the shameful situation they accidentally found themselves in. The young man waited so long for the moment to wipe the commoner's nose, but nothing worked. If only we had been able to learn about Gerver's appearance in advance, the situation would have been resolved faster, even before his arrival. As soon as Twarish graduates from the academy, she will most likely enter high society, so we will have to get rid of her a little earlier. She has no right to take control of her duchy. Footsteps were heard behind them, followed by a dark aura. It seems that the person who was just mentioned is Theon's sister, who was nearby and heard everything in detail. He suspected that Rish would be disliked, but this was too insidious. The duo had already moved to the Rish library, where she decided to read a little to calm down. From the very end of the dialogue, Philip did not lag behind and continued to smile, asking the lady what was wrong. She had such excellent manners, which were now disappearing, because she did not even speak to young Ian Vine. The last assumption, which seems much more logical, is that the blonde is already at that age when love comes, and therefore simply could not contain her feelings that were bursting out. She says that this is not true, but hears in response laughter that does not end. The knight doesn't realize how complicated the situation will become if they get closer, and he finds out that his girlfriend is Ruthiome. Of course, thanks to the artifact, he can't use his powers, but that doesn't matter. The girl asks him not to tell her father about what happened in the hall. The guy doesn't understand what the problem is, but he intends to keep the lady's first love a secret if it comes to that. The man can only talk about those aristocrats who so persistently tried to set up the beauty. The Duchess does not want to bother a busy man unnecessarily. Besides, if anything, he will replace Philip with Anna. Words had a much better effect. The green-eyed man promises that he will keep his mouth shut. The blonde apologized for not being able to properly stand up for her subordinate. They went to bed, but at night the lady woke up because of Python's familiar voice. Either this was a mistake, or the goddess really woke up after several years of imprisonment in that red bottle. The sounds were coming from the box standing on the windowsill. The beauty grabs the bottle opener and only then realizes that there lies the same motionless body of a squirrel, which remains in the same state as before. She wants to scream. In fact, the heroine did not realize it, but she relied on Python much more than it seemed. She did not think that she would need the goddess so much. Tears well up in her eyes and flow down her cheeks in even paths. The little girl doesn't know what she'll do if Hykinka doesn't show up. Quickly realizing what's happening, she slaps her cheeks, ordering herself not to give in to despair. The promise to save her friend still stands. She needs to do everything possible. Only now did Twarish notice the beautiful sky and the full moon. Sad thoughts seemed to follow her everywhere, because Pekan liked to go to the monster forest during the full moon. She even said that on such a day there were only advantages, because there was no one around, only silence. The gaze switches to Ian, who is following somewhere. He is on the street in his pajamas, and does not even pay attention to what is ahead. There is rustling behind Philip, is standing again, with those same golden eyes, which makes it clear that the knight has already disappeared. He and Ruthiome have not seen each other for a long time. It would be worth making up for lost time, and preferably as soon as possible. The green-haired man asks if he managed to see the goddess of war, who woke up briefly. After all, the voice was not an illusion, but reality. At first, the man was going to let them meet as he promised, but apparently he has not yet gained enough strength, so nothing will work out. Time dragged on in the moment. Since this is how it happened, Hykinka again asks to leave Peyton and sign a contract with him. According to him, this will be a profitable option that can be used. The beauty refuses. She kept all her promises saved. Philotap and entered the academy. Iandwine is also no longer in the Duke's castle and does not even bother him. It's time to return the animal, or rather her soul, which was taken away. The man chuckles and then turns away. He is not sure whether the lady really kept her promise, or whether it is a simple illusion that does not represent anything at all. The boy said that Iandwine not only needed to be taken from the Duke's castle and his life saved, but that today he would die. The young man walked forward. He didn't understand what was happening, but his body was once again moving on its own, no matter how much he wanted to stop. His legs weren't his, and everything remained exactly the same as before. The blonde is afraid that he will die exactly this way, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter. He always knew that he wouldn't live long. His father simply wouldn't allow him. But the only thing is, he would like to talk to that girl behind the mirror at least one more time. The Duke said that his mother had left behind a strange thing, namely a mirror with a stone broken into two parts, with the help of which a person on the other side could spy on the estate. But there was no need to worry anymore because Gerver had taken good care of the spies. The fragments shattered because they couldn't be glued back together, and time couldn't be turned back. The man seemed indifferent. He reminded her that she needed to take her medication even during the holidays, and their conversation ended very quickly. The boy lived only for his girlfriend, and he regretted that he couldn't fulfill his promise. The lake's surface reflected the girl's imagination, after which a loud splash was heard. Hikenka runs ahead of Ruthiom, pointing in the direction where Iandwain might have gone. Time is running out, and before he could even finish his line, the man has disappeared. Philip looks around, not understanding why they are in the depths of this forest. The girl, just in case, asks the young man again if he is really nearby, and he nods. They cannot stop considering that half the way has already been passed. Pointing forward, the lady asks not to hesitate. They need to find Iandwain before it is too late to do anything. The green-eyed man doesn't move from his place. He calls the lady once again, asking why she is looking for the Duke's son in the forest, near the academy in the middle of the night, who is supposed to be sleeping in his bed. This day brings new surprises, each of which changes its appearance. Tuarish turns around and looks sadly into Philip's eyes. She asks him to at least not say anything this time, and just help find the one they lost. The only thing that matters is what remains to be done. The duo still hurries forward, and right in the distance, a beautiful lake opens up. There is no one around, but the young man is sure that he heard something fall, but he does not understand what exactly it was. It is all too strange. Because of the darkness, it becomes more difficult to figure out. The eyes focused on the surface of the water. Only Rutiom is able to see the energy of and this is exactly what appeared somewhere in the depths. Quickly realizing what was happening, the lady informs the knight that there is a person in the water who must be saved. There is no time to waste. Running to the very shore, the lady notices the face of her friend, who is gradually sinking under the water. The level is getting higher, and the situation is getting worse. Fear takes over the body. It is scary to think that in a second Ian will die. Something needs to be done urgently. Philip doesn't think long and dives underwater himself to get the boy out of there. As soon as he's back on the surface, he answers the lady's question, assuring her that everything is fine. But first, they need to check the young gentleman's condition, and then they'll be able to assess the damage. The green-haired man carefully places the body on the ground and examines it, pressing his ear to the chest. He suddenly jumps up and starts shaking something. Iandvain's heart isn't beating. If he only recently fell into the water and didn't have time to swallow too much, one can only hope that this will at least help somehow. The boy simply has no right to die. He is obliged to meet many new people, see this world and be happy, just as he promised. From the very beginning, a rich life awaits him. It would be stupid to refuse. Now the girl does not want her friend to end up just like she did in her past life. Only now did the lady understand something. In people with abilities, accumulates inside the heart, and most likely, there is no heartbeat because too much power has accumulated in the weak body, which takes away vital energy. If the power of purification can penetrate inside, the problem will be solved almost immediately. The power calmly spreads throughout the body with a bright light, causing him to feel absorbed. Ian begins to cough. It seems that he finally woke up, because Rutiom immediately provided help, thereby saving his life and prolonging it at least a little more. The young man tries to toss and turn, but he has no strength left. Through some kind of haze, he sees two strangers in front of him, who are huddled together, but then he loses consciousness again. Despite what is happening, at least he has a heartbeat, which means that everything is not so bad, he will be okay. Judging by how quietly Gerver Jr. fell by the lake at that moment, the hero was also unconscious and did not understand what he was deciding on. If he were conscious, he would probably have fought for his life and not calmly allowed himself to drown. The little girl tries not to show her feelings, but she herself realized that all this most likely is an insidious plan of Duke Gerver. Philip promises to report what happened to the master. This time, the option of postponing, or keeping a secret, is not used first. He needs to get back into the dorm to put the boy to rest. The green-eyed man has put the body on his back and is already leaving. His head is full of thoughts. One thing is not clear, and that is how the lady found out that Ianvine is in the forest. Perhaps the beauty had been following the guy and somehow found out where he would be. It's hard to believe that Ian is really Tuarish's first love. If people at the Rodvik estate find out about what happened, they'll probably raise a fuss. It will be difficult to report, and the task will have to be turned to one's advantage. Gibbetsman met the knight near the window. He is not going to retreat and is smiling on such a dark night. The man opens the windows and enters someone else's room. So it seems that he will have to tell what happened and what made him behave so peculiarly. Roberhaf's guards who begin asking questions and ordering him not to miss a single unnecessary detail. He was simply passing by, saw the unconscious young Master Gerver, and brought him back because he thought that, as a decent person, he was simply obliged to take care of him. The guy had no idea where the Duke's room was, and he thinks he has no right to wake Dirkadian, who would probably be furious as soon as he got out of bed. Because this happens every time he doesn't get enough sleep, he's not trying to say that Gibbetsman and his sleep are less important. Philip thought that this could be a good opportunity for the young man, because when he found the gentleman, the young lady was also nearby. We are talking about Rish. The blue-eyed man immediately understands this and freezes with his mouth open, even blushing a little. His reaction was quite predictable. The knight found a weak point and was going to press it until he got what he wanted. He put a smile on his face, saying that if such a kind person as Robenhaf helps the Duke, Tuarish would definitely praise him and be delighted. The girl likes good people who help others. Of course, the hero agreed, and there was no need to go to Theon. Ian remembers the very moment when he began to drown his lungs, gradually filled with water, which did not allow him to breathe. Normally, it became more and more difficult. Someone called the boy, begging him not to die, and to be near the voice seemed familiar to him, but he could not figure out what it was. Before the young man's eyes was a blurry image of a girl who was clearly crying, because of him, no longer trying to hold back from what was happening, jumping up. The hero realizes that he is in his room, in bed. Something is wrong, or it was a stupid dream that ended simply leaving an unpleasant trace. Looking down, the blonde realizes that he is wearing different pajamas. Most likely what happened was real after all. Falling into the water and the girl's voice were also part of life. However, it still remains unclear what happened at that moment and who that beauty the stranger was. She might never meet him again. Rodvik arrived at the academy, but did not know that the student who wanted to see him was Ianvine. It seems that the boy took the promise to help directly. If something bad suddenly happens, they sit in silence, but not for long because, of course, everything will end very soon. It seems that the hero was very busy, so the boy apologizes for accidentally distracting him. He already said that if you need help, he is always glad to be there, so the Duke assures that everything is fine, while asking what the matter is, that an urgent meeting was needed, and even a personal one. There are memories in his head that will probably stay there for a long time. The girl said that, although she doesn't know who is in front of her, she wants him to see this whole world and definitely live, meet many people and be happy. The hero promised that he would live a rich life that would be the best only for him. If that child is in the academy and has been walking around the corridors somewhere nearby all this time, the blonde does not want to continue to die, being under the influence of his father. He decided that it was time to change his life 360 degrees. Otherwise, the end will come completely unnoticed. Ianvine wants to meet Ruthiom and say that he has achieved everything he promised. Exhaling, he begins his story. The father wants the boy to die from childhood. He gave him suspicious drugs. Evidence, unfortunately, does not exist, but his health deteriorated precisely because of them. Gerver Jr. entered the academy only to stop taking medication because he wanted to try to get out of this pit of nothingness. His father decided not to let go of his hands and grabbed his throat, hanging a medallion there, which greatly limits his strength. After entering, the young man also began to have problems with sleepwalking. Every time the protagonist fell asleep, his body began to move on its own and lead him to dangerous places, which were always in a different direction. Not long ago, the blonde thought he wouldn't be able to cope with what was happening and would simply die. But he was lucky. Such a life is not reality. He needs to find a way to escape the horrors. The Duke listened to the boy and nodded. He seemed to understand what was going on, and therefore promises that he will sincerely try to help and find a way out of the merged situation, which can still be corrected before it is too late, lowering his head. Ian cannot hold back. Tears are rolling down on their own, and he tries to thank. A day later, the girl arrived at the principal's office. She had finally made her decision and was the one who agreed to transfer to the magic department. This was exactly what she needed. All the necessary documents were already ready, and starting today, she would begin magic lessons like the rest of the students from the new department. The old man doesn't listen to the little girl's indignation at all about the fact that she didn't think that everything would happen so soon. He had long ago begun to rejoice. Very soon, the most talented magician of all time would appear in his academy. Fate was predetermined. There was no point in wasting time. Coming outside, the blonde calmly moves forward, but still thinks about what is happening. She does not know if she will be able to cope, but deep down, she hopes that this will end with a favorable outcome. Nothing bad will happen to her. Before she could reach the end of the room, the girl ran into her friends, who it turned out had been looking for her before Zig was the first to open his mouth, saying that they had created a club that anyone who wanted to could join. Robinhalf got angry almost instantly. He thought that he would be the one to convey the truth when it came to Rish. He reacts this way almost always, and there are no exceptions for him from the very beginning. From the third year onwards, it is mandatory to enroll in at least one club, and since it was easiest to create your own to suit your taste, both Sieg and Theon did just that. Another reason is that people run away from any place where the blonde's brother comes, even though she thinks that he is not so bad. At first, the name was something like a scientific council for desserts, so that one could laze around and eat sweets, but in the end, nothing changed. The lady didn't quite understand whether it was possible to create something like that. In her opinion, it was even a little strange, although Gibbetsman doesn't think so. Now a new problem has emerged, which is much larger than the previous one. The club is small, and even if a first-year student joins, there will still only be 4 people. Perhaps a friend has someone who would also like to join, so that the full membership can be registered. The heroine even thought for a moment, going over several existing options, which were discarded one after another. The lady doesn't know if she'll be able to convince anyone, but today she was transferred to the magic department, where there are many new people. As soon as Tuarish entered her class, the people standing near the tables dispersed. The girl who came over to them was on a completely different level. Everyone already knows how she is different, so no one tries to stand in her way. It seems that making friends will be a little more difficult than she initially thought. The girl exhales. She is no longer even angry because she cannot blame anyone. Zig smiles, saying that he will always be there for her. Rish Robenhoff is obviously jealous, so he stops talking, which at the moment is not helping in any way. Serdia himself promised another person, although it seemed that he had no normal friends at all outside of their group. After classes, Iandwine came out into the hall, smiled and greeted everyone. He recognized Tuarish first, because they had seen each other, then along with the knight who had shielded her. The Duchess doesn't believe what's happening and can't concentrate, because the friend Siegbert brought turned out to be Gerver's son. Inside, there's a frozen horror that can't be changed. Her face will remain frightened, although this may seem strange to others. The lady would not be able to say a single word in his presence without her voice being recognized, but her friends would think it was suspicious, and so the lady would ultimately be cornered, and not a single living soul should know about the mirror and Hikenka. A shift has already occurred in Rish's mind. She thinks that everything will end extremely badly, because as soon as people find out that Rudiam is in front of them, They will start trying to get some benefit from her for their family. A brunette came into the room and gently placed his hand on his little sister's shoulder. He asked what had happened, but the little girl remained silent, looking around with frightened eyes. At this point, there was a real chaos going on in her head that was impossible to turn back. Theon didn't need to be told what was going on. He thought his sister had been offended, and his facial expression immediately changed. 360 degrees, Sieg shrugged. Ian Vane was his friend, so it seemed that introducing them to each other wouldn't be a problem. The girl thinks that she needs to run away quickly, and preferably as far away as possible. She has no other options left. She asked the guy to lean closer to her and whispers that she wants to eat. Of course, there is no explanation why they are talking in a whisper. A minute later, they left and the guy calmly said that they were going to feed the dog. Ian wonders who that name is, while Robingolf drills him with an angry look. The blonde is so handsome that it even takes his breath away. Tuarish might fall in love with him. He'll have to stop the young man right away, without even giving him a chance to set his sights on Tuarish, who deserves someone better. He smiles, assuming it's time to fill out an application to join the club. Entering the classroom, Gebetsman asks whether the hero returned safely to his room that day. That night, he fell into the water, and therefore, now the most important thing is to clarify purely for safety reasons. No one suspects how surprised the Duke was when he was approached with such a strange request. In the middle of the night, he even had to pick out his pajamas and give away his favorite one since the eldest was completely wet. Thus the blue-eyed man shows that he and Rish are close. The blonde immediately leaned his elbows on the table and began to anxiously ask who saved him that day. Obviously, he didn't know about Rodvik. Judging by the expression on his face, if he tells the truth, there will be big problems. Smiling, the blue-eyed man replies that he doesn't know anything. Sitting in the garden, the brother asks the blonde if she doesn't like Iandwin, and if so, she can kick him out. The lady has her own reasons. It has nothing to do with him at all. The girl is trying to get out of answering questions, and she also has a sore throat, so she says that she won't be able to do it in the group. That's the condition. The only one who can help is Theon, and he has to agree. Despite himself, the Trinity is already approaching. They also want to be close and present. The brunette insists that they are not having tea. His sister has a cold and wants to have a snack, and then rest a bit, preferably in complete silence. Robinhalf is worried and asks why he wasn't told earlier. Sieg turned into a wolf and came over to lay his head on the girl's lap. Ian Wayne stands to the side. The boy used to smile, but now something has happened because his facial expression doesn't change at all. He's sad. The girl sincerely hoped that at the academy, the boy would have more reasons to have fun. Someone took them all away, or there was another important reason, and having stood up, the lady brought the blonde a beautiful cupcake, and he accepted it with pleasure. For a second, he seemed to see something, a reflection of the man who had cried, then the same hair. I can't believe that Rish was the savior. They are so suspiciously similar to each other, and therefore it is almost impossible to make a mistake. It throws me off track. Now that they had filled out the application, it was time to end the meeting, considering that Rodvik was sick and wouldn't be able to talk to the others properly. Just so Iandwine knows he can leave the circle as soon as approval comes tomorrow. If it's already created, it won't be disbanded because of a reduced team member. The guy is not busy, so he will stay with them. Robinhalf tries not to show his irritation, but everything is clear in his head. It was only because of her brother that the girl survived today. She was not forced to talk, and so everything ended quite quickly. They offered her to go inside as soon as possible. Philip arrived, and since the guards would be nearby, the young man was going to leave. He thought that the lady would return later, but she became free earlier. It was the first meeting. At the end of the hall sits the girl who was on the floor then. She is a friend of those hooligans who attacked the knight and tried to ruin the heroine's life. Apparently, Selena hurt her leg, but there was no point in helping her. While Philip was speaking, the lady had already run away and came up to ask what had happened and check her condition. Sitting down next to her, the heroine decides to heal the bruise on her knee. It's about the same as last time, so it should be quite easy to cure with the help of a star. Selena sits with her mouth open because she can't believe the use of magic. She has never seen anything like this before, so she is surprised. Nothing hurts anymore. Looking away, lie down and apologize for how her friends treated her last time. Turish is actually a good person. The blonde couldn't pass by the man who was left in trouble for her. It was normal if they were finished. It would be better to go back to the knight, who was worried. Selena asks to stop. She has some question, but first she has to ask about Ian Vane and whether Rodwick is friends with him. The girl has already said that she cannot pass by a person in trouble, and so now we will talk about a boy. It seems that Ian sleepwalks every day. A knight from the ladies' guard saw the young man walking outside the estate at night. It seems he saw him 4 or 5 times. Since that autumn, it happens again and again. Something inside the blonde broke. She thought that the Duke had set all this up, but now nothing fits, and it makes her feel uneasy. Selena is especially worried that the baby cried very bitterly. If the lady succeeds, she must take care of his health, and even if this is too much, he is a classmate who is worried about. You can't turn a blind eye to what's happening to the guy, lest it be too late. In the end, it won't end so badly. Philip heard every word, and he will also have to keep an eye on Gerver. If his illness progresses, he could get into some kind of trouble. This is clearly not all. There are far more problems than it might seem. For some reason, my soul is too restless. There are too many thoughts that I can't put aside. The boy lies in bed. He is afraid to fall asleep, because he might never open his eyes again. Duke Rodvik promised to help, but did not say when he would contact him again. It felt like his head was about to split, but he was still too scared to sleep. The young man decided to go out for a walk and found himself again at that unfortunate lake in the forest. That girl was definitely Twarish, but it was unclear how to approach her. Someone was jumping from behind the girl's knight, grabbed the guy, and gave the lady a signal of success. The beauty hurries forward, asking him not to let go of the guy, so that he does not fall into the water. It turns out that he is in his right mind, which means that he has just heard a voice that he recognizes. They sit on the bench in complete silence. It turns out that the Duke was out for a walk and didn't tell anyone. Inside, there is a frozen fear because the first line is about to be said. Gerver smiles, saying that he is fine. The girl asks if he is afraid to sleep, knowing that the symptoms can appear at any time. Today, he went for a walk for this very reason. This condition will only worsen. This won't work. The blonde remembers that her friend came to the academy to improve his poor health. You'll have to do everything your own way. The girl's brother might be against it, but in reality, he's not as cruel as he might seem to other people around him. He's much better. The young master was brought in by Philip. The boy was standing with an angry expression on his face, because he was very angry when he realized that he was not allowed to get a good night's sleep. To stop the knight from babbling too much, the brunette hit him and then asked why Rish had called him at all. She must have had some important reason. The little girl wants the hero to sleep with the Duke today, and it is impossible to refuse such a request, because it is a matter of life and death in the literal sense of the word. Iandwine has recently started showing symptoms, many suspicious signs that suggest this is not simple sleepwalking, but something more. Last time, the guy almost drowned in the lake, but the Duke still doesn't care. Turish immediately sank. She thought that at least once they would listen to her and do her a favors. The one sleeping with the blonde, last time they tied him to the bed, and nothing worked, so she needs a living person nearby. The two had already started arguing, but then a brunette appeared, who had clearly come to life. In a menacing voice, he promised that he would take care of the boy and ordered him to quickly follow forward. They moved away and said goodbye to the knight. And the girl who remained in the clearing, Ian was given only one warning: not to lay claim to the boy's sister so as not to end up in trouble. In the morning, the first lecture on magic began. People cannot generate energy, but they use magic extracting it from various magical stones that they find. Today, the practice of turning stones into water is scheduled. In order to deny the existing essence and endow it with a new one, we need to try a new way of containing power. At first, it is Rumbella who shows the example and how everything should be done. Water appears in the glass and sparkles beautifully. It is time for the students. The girl asks herself to pull herself together, and then, after reading the words, a stream of water pours somewhere upward, causing everyone around to scream from the excessive force of the direction. They order her to stop and cast some kind of counterspell, which in theory should work well, but the little girl doesn't even know what it is. Rumbella uses some kind of power, but nothing works even after a professional approach. It seems no one can stop even a first-year student. Gibbetsman was pulled away from his lesson. The director decided to talk about something, or more precisely, about his father's latest donation, which he made to the academy for his son's success. There is some noise in the classroom, and because of the amount of water, the students' uniforms are wet. They are standing knee-deep in water. Twarish is unable to do anything. She wants to cry because something terrible happened because of her. A woman stands in a man's office and insistently asks him to forbid a student from studying magic. It cannot help, and even more so, it can harm other students. The old man himself had already become convinced of what it meant to have too much ability. Because of the girl, a flood almost happened, which interrupted their lesson. The children's education was in danger because of one person. It's scary to even imagine what could have happened if Gibbetsman hadn't intervened with his magic and made sure that everything ended more or less well. The ice froze the water. The director is so reluctant to remove the magician that he finds all sorts of excuses. He smiles, saying that they now have a skating rink, but Rumbella is not impressed. Jokes aside, if a person has enormous abilities that he cannot control, he is considered a dangerous creature for the environment. To add to the whole problem, the lady belongs to the Rodvik family, which is one of the strongest, and the teacher insists on a ban that must be imposed. Everything is still unclear, because if you think about it, you can remember that the task of teachers is to teach children to control their powers and subjugate them. A compromise can always be found. A person will be invited to the academy who will help understand whether Twarish is truly as dangerous as the woman thinks. Duke Gerver is a weak but good option to handle the job. He has the ability of a discerning eye. It will help to find out the whole truth about the girl. There is silence in the Rodwick mansion, but only Ian and Blake are sitting in the living room. The man called the guy so suddenly because he seems to have discovered the true cause of the illness he has. In ancient times, there was an artifact endowed with a curse that infected other people. It did not detach from the body and sealed their magical power in its cocoon, preventing them from using it. There was something cursed on the boy's body. A second later, he fully understood the situation, which made his soul incredibly sad. He knew that his father didn't love him, but he didn't think that this would happen. Removing the pendant will be very difficult, because according to the rules, the curse can only be removed by the man himself, and all this applies only to himself. If he tries to remove it forcibly, he may lose his life. There is a brooch on the table, which is also an artifact but slightly modified. It cannot release the power, but at least it will stop sleepwalking. Rodvik apologizes for not being able to help, but the kid is happy that at least there is something. The young man is truly sorry. He fell under the power of a madman who sees nothing but himself. Philip came to report on the past week. Risha was fine. It seemed like nothing bad had happened and she was happy, but there was something very strange. The man fell silent because he remembered that his daughter seemed to have taken a liking to Ian. If he hadn't been just Twarish's friend, they certainly wouldn't have helped him. But since that was the case, nothing could be said. Smiling but showing his true anger, the young man says that he remembers it as if he and his daughter were good friends. Of course, the treatment will not go beyond what is permitted. The next morning, Ian Wayne met his friend in the hallway. As it turned out, she was trying to hide. The children wouldn't leave her alone right after that unpleasant incident. A group of classmates looked around the hallways, trying to figure out where the blonde had gone. They hadn't had this much fun in a long time, so they wanted to be close to the student. The girl seemed embarrassed that her popularity had suddenly increased, but this was normal for such a person. The guy took his friend outside to a quieter place. Virgo admits that it was not she who created the rink, hoping that the conversation can be maintained. The blonde says that he returned from a meeting with Mr. Blake. The Duke found a way to help the baby with his illness, and now his condition will improve significantly. Without holding back her emotions, the beauty climbs into a hug, exclaiming that this is wonderful. It's impossible to believe that the girl was so happy that she even cried. Her friend survived and found a new meaning. She only thanks Twarish. He should be grateful to her. The girl came to dinner with her brother, and he immediately began asking if his sister had cried. Her eyes were a little wet. This makes it clear that someone made her feel bad. The blonde would probably get into trouble if anyone found out she was talking to Ian, so she had to say she just missed her dad. If the girl is so bored, then instead of wasting her time with empty tears, she should go home this weekend. Theon can apply for an exit visa. First-year students are not allowed to leave the academy, but in their case, it is always possible to come to an agreement. The guy always grumbles when he cares, but remains faithful. Having said goodbye to his sister, the hero leaves. He truly understands why the girl cried so much. A person like her could very well give her life for her father. A few months ago, there was a conversation where Theon was told that he was lucky because Risha was waiting for him at home, unlike the Robin half-sisters, who could not be at peace. Theon thought that the girl really did look like a cute dog. Considering the way she was looking at him, a knight of the Rodwick family was galloping towards them. It was the year when the girl became very ill. The servants whispered that they did not believe that the girl would die so easily, being such a young person. The fear inside the boy's chest made him cry, because he didn't want his sister to pass away, just like his mother. She should have lived long and happily. The boy began to draw parallels. That time in the forest when they were attacked, he didn't feel bad in the morning, but Tuarish was nearby. The same thing happened with his father. He felt much better while his daughter was lying in bed. I want to start praying because for now, this is the only existing hope that remains. The mother is no longer there, but the girl is obliged to survive and be there. The brunette promises that he will protect his sister for the rest of his life because he understands that since she survived, the responsibility fell on his shoulders. It is unclear whether the Lord answered the Duke's prayers or decided to save a pure soul. But the most important thing is that she is now healthy and is next to him. The oath of that day will be in this life, perhaps forever. Now the man will no longer allow his sister to be in danger and feel that no one will help her. The next day, after classes, the club started its meeting. Zig calls the girl closer to them in the room that was specially allocated for their circle. The third years said they would come later because they had another lecture. The girl nods, but doesn't understand. According to others, new clubs usually don't get premises right away. The fact that the club room was obtained so quickly for some reason can be considered surprising, but only for Serdia. The oddities are not revealed because he is aware that Robin Half got the place by threatening the council members. A sign has already been hung on the door, and one can go see what's inside. Opening it from the other side, the group comes across Gibbetsman, who looks at them with his usual indifferent gaze. They haven't seen Tuarish for a long time, so they immediately go out for tea, hoping that nothing will go wrong, and that it will end on a good note. Blue Eyes was in the director's office, where they were discussing scholarships, and the old man had one more spare question he wanted to ask. Perhaps Gibbetsman maintains contact with Gerver, and he would like to discuss a certain student with him, but the man is almost always absent. Rish has amazing potential, but some teachers think that her power is dangerous. It was necessary to find out the Duke's opinion since the meeting was not possible. The old man was about to send a letter, but the Duke abruptly snatched the paper from his hands. Gibbetsman asked to provide him with all the troubles. If he meets him, he will definitely pass on the message and ask him to come to the academy. They want to show Blake's daughter to the Duke, who previously tried to attack Theon. It would be good to make him their ally. Ian thought the man had come to visit his son, but it seemed that was not the case. After finishing his tea, he said goodbye and packed his things. Gibbetsman has also accumulated a lot of energy. We need to figure out when we can try to carry out a full cleansing. If the boy's father gets sick, he will probably be very upset, and this cannot be allowed under any circumstances. The girl promises herself to find a way out of the situation. It's better not to think about the next plan, but to accept a pleasant gift. A beautiful puppy is handed over to the blonde in honor of her joining the club. Even though the brother may be constantly grumbling, he seems to be glad that the lady joined their club and everything ended on a positive note. Suddenly, something hit him right in the heart. The brunette bends over. He himself does not understand what is happening, but says that nothing happened to divert suspicion. Gibbetsman passed the letter on to his friend, and the director said that he was going to consult with Gerver about a student and her unusual powers. If the mail had been delivered, a big disaster would have happened. The head of the academy is engaged in literally pointless activities that will give him nothing. Now Blake is in debt to the Duke, but he is going to discuss this later. He heard that it was all started by a teacher named Rumbella Izumit. The woman is principled, and moreover cannot tolerate students who do not meet her high standards. It is likely that Tuarish's potential, in her opinion, went to someone who was absolutely unworthy, and this was just a coincidence of circumstances that happened. If left as is, the Duke's daughter will be tormented until graduation. This time it is better to agree to the test. The man refuses again. There is another method that can be used. Gerver is not the only one with insight, so it will not be too difficult to carry out what was planned. The Trinity is sitting at the table and playing bricks. The lady doesn't know what to draw, but no matter which one she loses, in any case, she has most likely already lost. In the end, the girl's brother ended up with 5 wins ahead. She just needs to win a few times to get ahead of him. Of course, this is more like a pipe dream. The guy is lying on the table unconscious. If he's angry, it's because they force him to play Jenga on the weekends, and otherwise there aren't many options. Something is wrong with the young man. He suddenly became ill, and now he lies unconscious, trying to swallow air. It is difficult for him to breathe. There is very little energy around the body, and compared to that time in the forest, this is a real trifle, so it is not clear what is wrong. It might be a common cold, but then the girl could use a piece of the star, and thus heal it, making the pain less. Jumping up, the young man pushes his sister away, asking her to never touch him again. Philip is instructed to convey to the mansion about a meeting with the Duke. I had to ask him to never let the lady touch me, but it was clear that this would not end well. The hero goes forward and falls to the floor. Night has already fallen, eyes slowly open, but it is quite difficult because the body hurts. The girl was next to me all this time. The father came and asked if his son was okay. Sometimes it's worth using the girl's abilities. Simply ignoring would not be the best option. Rish was afraid that something would happen to her brother, but even in such a situation, she kept her promise not to come closer under any circumstances. The young man is asked why he forbade himself from being touched, but in his head, he again remembers that very moment in the forest when he was told the truth. For some reason, the brunette thinks that his sister is a special child who is very different from all the others. Virgo is truly the best, so the family is obliged to protect her, providing her with joy in life, without the losses that she may experience. It seems the boy received a letter that when the time comes, he and Ian will come to the estate. The professor wants to ban the use of magic and thinks that it is dangerous to possess something that cannot be controlled. Rumbella was going to find out how dangerous the lady was. With the help of Duke Gerver, they were even going to send him a letter to make it clear. The father will never allow something to happen that his daughter did not want, and he hopes that his son will also help him in achieving what will be difficult. In the morning, her eyes barely opened. The girl couldn't sleep normally at all. She didn't think that the teacher would be so dangerous for her. Thank God Blake refused to show the beauty to Javera. But at night, a nightmare appeared, intending to return the lady to her past. The girl wants to see Python again, as if nothing had happened, to discuss everything. Hikank promised something, but never showed up again. A familiar voice is heard this time. It is definitely not an illusion. There is a man standing on the table, waving his hand to the side as if greeting. Now the girl is in her original form, being a squirrel. She had many limited abilities. Stars are like gods that people revered. Unfortunately, nothing lasts forever, so some of them were forgotten again over time. Unable to remain in the new dimension any longer, they returned to their graves, where they slowly lost their strength and fell into an endless sleep. Everything that has been said is more reminiscent of ancient prophecies. God is not so good that he will be like before, but not so bad that he will go to rest. There is a light in the girl's eyes. Because she considers Python to be as wonderful as before, she just doesn't understand how she managed to escape from Hikenki. The redhead herself doesn't know whether she managed to leave completely. It feels like she remained a part of her consciousness, and this will remain true for now. It turns out that God got out of his vessel, but was unable to return the permanent body. In his case, one can consider that he has already taken his due revenge. We need to remember the moment when the man temporarily freed the one he had imprisoned. That was the last chance to do something and make it come true. The conversation turns to the day when Ian fell into the water and they tried to get him out, and when Hikenka took the lady into that forest, saying that the boy was dying. Using his manipulation ability, the man tricked the star, pretending to be in the vessel again while hiding in the knight's body. The guy was quietly pumping out all his strength, trying to finish what he started as quickly as possible, and now that man lost his strength and fell asleep, no longer able to hold back the tears streaming down her cheeks. The protagonist is grateful that she was finally able to see her friend. The girl obviously had a hard time. And if so, it would be better to stop crying and calmly tell everything she had to go through. From the very first words, the young man began to get angry because some people want to forbid the lady from using her magic, which cannot be controlled. Python has no intention of backing down or calming down, because in his understanding, this is already something terrible. It cannot be postponed. It needs to be sorted out. To use magic, you need to cast long spells of people. Otherwise, there is no other way to reveal your potential. This is what Rumbella said. The redhead explains that while written only for normal humans, they were created to try to survive the power of the stars with tiny abilities. Several days passed, and everyone gathered in the director's office to understand how strong Lady Tuarish really was, and whether she was a danger to society. The guy silently asks his girlfriend not to worry. He asks Rudvik if he can get started with what he has started. Using his divine eye, the boy rubs his eyes and says that the student is fine. There is no need to restrict her so much. Of course, the first to object is the woman who started all this in the first place. She shouts, trying to prove that the matter is not finished. Izumit had once seen the Duke use his powers, and his eyes had almost glowed like lanterns, rather than emitting a glint. The gentleman might not have used his insight because his pupils only began to glow for a moment, and then everything stopped. It is not necessary that everyone with the power will have the same manifestations, but Rumbella does not believe it. She thinks that the Duke is using some kind of tricks. If this is true, the blonde herself intends to prove that the woman thinks that she cannot control her strength. But this is not true. Tuarish trained hard just to prove she was capable, but her words slightly frighten those gathered because they are aware of her potential. Since the Duke's daughter said that she did everything possible to improve herself, they should be witnessing neither failure nor success. The ghouls move, the heroine casts a short spell, which according to Rumbella will not help her control the power. At first the lady transferred to the faculty because the director himself suggested it, but now she is very interested in doing this. She trains diligently. Making Sweet Eyes the girl again, promises that she will continue to make the world a better place, and will be calm, she asks to continue studying. The director, without hesitation, promises that everything will be fine, and the discussion of the ban on the use of magic ends there. The girl did not forget to thank her friend for the help he provided this morning. He smiles, even though he did not do anything special. Even the potion that can change the color of the eyes was also prepared by His Grace the Duke, so everything said should apply to it. Thanks to Ianwine creating the right atmosphere, the main character also gained the courage to show her abilities, which means much more. Python has already returned to her squirrel body, which she found. She says that she is grateful to him because only she transformed the stupid human formulas. A beeping sound is heard, and it turns out that Siegbert, who has been sitting in the guy's jacket pocket all this time, has transformed himself to be present. He warns that Riche needs to run. Theon is bored in class, and since that day his sister hasn't come close to him. He meant not to touch him, only when he's feeling bad, but not always. There are some sounds outside the window that really attract attention. Monsters have appeared from somewhere in the academy courtyard, and it is becoming impossible to remain calm. People scatter in different directions to save their lives, and only Durkadion and Robinhoff know what they must do. After some time, the duo dealt with everyone, but it was still unclear where the monsters from that forest came from. Most likely Riche is with her father, and everything is fine with her. The Duke came to the academy today, and this makes my soul feel better. For some reason, an extremely strange thought suddenly came to the hero's mind. It lingered inside, making him doubt what was happening. Monsters usually have no intelligence and act as they please, but then someone forced them to gather together and attack the students' academy. The nearest habitat is 5 days' drive away. There are a lot of students in this place, and if anything happens, someone will protect them. But the fact remains a fact. It was today that the young man's father arrived at the academy. Someone might be deliberately trying to force the man to use his abilities. A bird flies in the sky. It seems like another monster, but as it turns out, it is a metamorphosis of Zig, who took his friends with him. The boy sank to the ground, and the lady who immediately got off smiled. She was glad that everything was all right with the young man. The father is with the teachers who are building a protective barrier. He was the first to volunteer to protect the school from monsters. It seems that they don't attack the children since they consider Serdia to be their relative. He is the same huge size they received permission to help the others. Everyone is already in the shelter. All that remains is to go there ourselves. A maid runs to meet them, shouting that Robinhalf's father is in danger. The Duke lies unconscious on the bed. A lot of Ohm energy has accumulated around him. On the way to the academy, he met a bunch of monsters. The knight was supposed to protect his master, but it didn't work out. The director hadn't seen a person with such a concentration of magic inside him for a long time. If the blonde cleanses the man, then most likely he will survive. But there are too many people around. She has one idea of what to do. Robin Half wants to send his father home, because as soon as the carriage arrives at the mansion, he will also go there. Blue Eyes is glad that Duke Rodvik will stay with him. With an old friend nearby, the man will be able to prepare more calmly. The boy said goodbye and left. The heroine is about to go inside and asks to cast some perception magic. It is better to take advantage of the moment and go inside, while no one is able to see the human form this way. Everything will be decided. The brother appeared behind her, asking why and how his sister used magic. The star is surprised how he managed to recognize such details. The guy noticed that the lady had become so pale, as if she would disappear. If this was magic, it would be better not to do such things in front of him again, because it seemed like she was about to die. Knowing in advance what Tuarish had planned, the man says that he forbids her from making any movements. He knows how dangerous it could be. The guy calls his friends, asking if they have seen the squirrel that the dog raised. He does not say why he does this, he just does what he thinks is right. Ian Vane begins to look at the baby in the same way as Zig, who does not forget to mention that he too can become the same animal. The guy using sleight of hand tied up the trio to keep them all together. Serdia must help him and keep an eye on the lady until the very end. The girl could suffer again like last time. And even at this stage, Rodvik's condition leaves much to be desired, and the responsibility is on their shoulders.